The protagonist recounts that there was a time when he lived in peace with his family, but unfortunately he no longer has those memories as the war destroyed everything. On an ordinary day in any city, a missile flies toward a city and in the next second comes the explosion, leaving nothing standing. Only remnants of humanity remain. His earliest memory is of ashes covering the city and the stench of smoke. The boy sees, sitting across the street, a woman. With a pale and defeated face, she seems to be staring at nothing. But these memories are still blurred with smiling faces and shoulders he used to lean on. Despite the difficulty, the image of loving parents is very vivid, at least until they appeared, emerging straight from the despair of humanity. These beings were called gods. The great divinity speaks and calls humans little lambs. The gods command that they be worshipped, as their new masters to guide them to a new world. Civilization will be rebuilt in the name of the gods. All who seek salvation bring the soul of your neighbor and come to the sanctuary. 15 years later, the protagonist holds the picture of his family. A man mourns that they have already arrived and asks the boy to follow him. The gods restored humanity that men took millennia to build in just a few days. This is the sanctuary of the golden god Barak. A being welcomes the visitors. As this being asks the visitors if they are qualified, the protagonist says that it is everyone's dream to enter the sanctuary, but there are only two ways to do so. One is by offering a sacrifice, which is exactly what the man does. The other way is to be a sacrifice. Other men appear to take the protagonist while the priest leads the slave trader inside. Our hero believes he is late, but it doesn't matter because his goal is not the sanctuary. It is to meet the gods, because he clearly remembers when he was with his deceased family. They spoke of mercy and love, salvation and blessing, justice and kindness. That is why the protagonist wants to meet them, each of the gods of this world. One by one, he will throw them all into hell. In another part of the city, the same man from before walks through the streets, until he sees a bar and enters. The man asks the bartender for anything good. While preparing the drink, the bartender recognizes that the man is new in town, and so he admires how everything in the city of the golden god is made of gold. In a golden goblet, a welcome drink is served. The man asks if the god Barak has the power to create gold, but the bartender says no, that it is a common mistake for outsiders to think so. In reality, the divinity's ability is to transform things into gold. Water, stone, or anything else can be transformed, and even outsiders can receive gold from Barak. A sacrifice must be made, and if it is satisfactory, the gold reward is great. If not, the gold still comes, but in lesser amounts. The man asks what makes the god give more or less reward. Lightly, the bartender answers that Barak has a hobby: he collects art. Art object number 216, a man dancing in rage. Another art object, number 1087, a child singing in lament. Barak asks, all excited, if these statues are cool. Tied to a chair, the protagonist remains silent. The god asks again if the boy liked them, but Barak already knows the answer just by his expression. The divinity also agrees with the protagonist. He doesn't like them either, so he drops the statues and lets them shatter on the floor. They are tired of old men and children. His followers always bring easy prey. It has been a long time since Barak had a strong man like our hero. Then the god points to an empty spot on the shelf. Right there in the middle is the place for the hero, where other adult men are kept. All excited, trembling all over, Barak is crazy to finally complete his collection. But something seems strange to the god. Something on the shelf is bothering him. Barak says he should have left 2 empty spaces. All the pieces are of damaged men. It is normal for a human to be injured while being hunted. No one wants to be sacrificed. But Barak had never made such a clean sacrifice as the protagonist. The god of gold then understands that the hero is with the man who brought him, the one who offered him as a sacrifice. The man in question calls the hero over the radio to inform him that God has the power to transform things into gold. And Barak sees that there is a bug in his offering's ear. He picks up the device and comments that he had heard there are non-believers who cause trouble, but who would have thought that one of them would have the audacity to appear in front of a god? Then he crushes the transmitter. Barak finds it funny that they became so confident after defeating a few minions. So the god challenges the protagonist. With a touch, his skin starts turning into gold, while the divinity says he wants to see what a human can do. But he better hurry because in 5 minutes our hero will turn into a statue. Our hero asks how the logic works if he traps bodies in gold while gradually absorbing the soul. Barak says that's exactly what he does, but the protagonist has no soul. He can even check if he wants. The god of gold gets suspicious that the hero is planning something. With the tip of his finger, Barak scratches the boy's forehead, and the divinity becomes confused about what happened to his spirit. The protagonist asks if God is frustrated because his soul is gone. It was sold, to be more exact. The boy stands facing a gigantic creature. To destroy the gods, he became the being that embraced all the demons. The evil creatures enter straight through his forehead into the void. Barak has no idea what he means by void. The god of gold has never heard of such a thing. More importantly now is figuring out what to do with someone who has no soul. Unfortunately, Barak has his answer. The boy has no value for his collection. Right after, a celestial being slams the hero's face into the ground with a punch. One more thing, a being who wants to defeat the gods is blasphemy. So Barak blasts the boy with his power. To what was left of the boy, God says that there is nothing that can destroy divine beings. Barak assumed that this boy was full of tricks, so he must be a servant of another celestial being. The god orders his high priest to find out whom the boy served. While Barak gives the order to go after the man who brought this sacrifice, he doesn't see the protagonist getting up. Then the boy approaches from behind and repeats the god's phrase about there being nothing that can end a divine being. Maybe they should test that theory then. At that moment, our hero summons a creature of flames called Pavaka. Then fire consumes Barak's arm. Half of his golden face melts completely. The god orders his men to attack our hero. Raz is the demon of the moment now. In an instant, all the soldiers are sliced to pieces. Pavaka brings enormous pain. Braz inflicts gigantic agony. This is the price of demon power. Even though it hurts a lot, our hero manages to handle it. Barak becomes enraged at the audacity of a mere human to confront him. The god of gold then decides to take the boy seriously. So, as expected, the protagonist says he already knew that low-level demons would not be enough to defeat him. With no choice, he brings forth the powerful demon lords. With this, he will show what hell really looks like. The man at the bar wonders how his partner is doing at the moment he stands over the defeated soldiers. Still sleepy, the protagonist sees his father, his mother, and then his brother. Then he wakes up to the sad truth that they are no longer alive. Our hero holds his father's shirt, angry about what happened to his family. A man approaches the protagonist and comments that nowadays it's not uncommon for people to lose someone important to them. People hunting their own kind to enter the sanctuaries. While praying to the gods, humanity lives in hell. The man sincerely asks if there is any chance the world could change. But the question leaves the boy furious. He doesn't want change. What he wants is for everything to collapse completely. Laughing, the man says that's the correct answer. There's no way to change anything. Everything must be destroyed and rebuilt from scratch. Then the man introduces himself as Walter, leader of the Eastern non-believers. Walter says that he recently discovered an artifact capable of destroying the gods, and that object led him to where he is now, standing in front of the protagonist. A child chosen by the void to become a living weapon against the gods. The man hands the boy the demonic artifact, and the boy accepts to become a weapon. Barak sees nothing special in human using the powers of a demon. For the god, it doesn't matter where the weapon comes from, a mortal is just a mortal. Barak appears in his new form. As a giant of gold, the god says that in his sanctuary, he's omnipotent and absolute. But our hero gets excited that his opponent is finally fighting back. In response, the Golden Colossus prepares an attack. All who challenge authority must be brought down. A new golden explosion hits where the protagonist was. Barak keeps telling his challenger that he must suffer for eternity as the unbelieving worm he is. Then, our hero summons Braz again and slices the god of gold in half. But with that, the boy is reaching his limit. Yet Barak's voice says that the unbeliever continues to resist until the end. So God will test how many times the protagonist can come back to life. The form of the giant starts changing again as Barak promises he will crush and destroy our hero. With his new impulses, the Golden Colossus destroys everything in a new golden explosion. One of the priests says that the god is going overboard. Soon after, the temple starts to collapse. The people in the city feel an earthquake and wonder if Barak is the cause. One of the followers of the god of gold lies unconscious, and then a foot picks up his golden mask. The bartender asks what the man is doing with Barak's followers. Then the bar owner concludes that his customer is a non-believer, and that it's because of him that his god is angry. Walter says that just a second ago, the bar owner was treating him very well. Even though he, like others in the city, sacrificed his companions all in the hope of earning the god's favor. Then the bartender begins the process of turning into gold, while the leader of the non-believers continues to say that these divine beings don't see people as humans. To the gods, we are only living energies. Walter leaves the man behind and walks away. Outside, the leader of the non-believers finds it impressive how Barak is stronger than he thought. Apparently, the divine being plans to absorb the more than 15,000 souls of his followers. Amid the smoke in the distance, someone seems to be arriving. The motorcycle stops, and it's a girl named Katie who came to rescue her leader. The captain yells at the girl for being crazy for showing up there, but the girl says the same about her leader. Katie says it's been 5 years since she heard anything from her boss, and out of nowhere, the old man shows up sending a message saying he was going to war against Barak. Walter, annoyed at being called old, says she's underestimating him if she thinks he would do something without being prepared. The girl asks if he got the weapon to defeat the gods. The leader says that what he got is beyond expectations. Walter says that as soon as he met the boy named Dale, he was certain. Those eyes were everything the artifact wanted. Hopelessness, suffering, hatred, and fear. More than that, a desperate thirst for revenge. Moreover, those who seek to use the artifact must embed it into their hearts. The boy didn't hesitate for even a second. That's how Dale willingly walked with death for 5 years, and yet his body didn't deteriorate. Walter could only imagine what that boy's soul went through in hell. And suddenly, Dale descended into hell. He returns from the world of the dead. Katie is startled by the idea of someone resurrecting, and Walter says that the boy succeeded in making a contract with the void. What Dale did was more than sell his body and soul. By seeking powers to defeat the gods, the young boy gained something very special. Our protagonist isn't intimidated by the golden giant's haste in front of him. In fact, it's what he was waiting for. With the power obtained by absorbing all those souls, it should be enough. Caddy asks what this special power could be. Walter realizes that the ability to defeat even the gods is about to begin, the power of Udale. Barrick is left speechless by what he has seen before him. A beam of the crown of flames is lifted to the skies by a red hand. The promise of the god of gold now, yes, the protagonist is ready to hunt. Dale asks for the power of the being he summoned, the king of flames who governs the injustices of hell, Agni. This is the true ability that Dale brought from the underworld. Receiving the crown of flames, the protagonist has his body transformed. Possession is the power to receive the body of the lords of the dark world. Dale assumes his complete new form. Now with all that power, the demon laughs with happiness. Then the creature charges to attack. Not even for a second does it stop laughing. The small creature jumps fearlessly toward the golden colossus. Barrett points his giant hand and an eye opens in his palm. Then he traps the demon, but the flames of hell explode the giant hand. The entire arm continues to be consumed by the fire of hell. The creature is unstoppable and unbeatable. When the demon approaches Barrick's face, it jumps. Dale shouts for his body to burn down to the bones. A giant hand of fire is summoned and crushes the great god of gold like a fly. Barrick screams in pain from the heat, while melting the divine being begs to be spared. Unable to endure the unbearable pain of the hellish flames, he pleads for the demon to end his suffering. Walter is happy that the mission was a success, and his partner doesn't even have much to say. Caddy wonders if the god was really defeated. The leader says that this was only the beginning. Someone comes walking through the smoke. The protagonist says that he feels inspired now. Then he hands over a finger that came from inside Barrick's body. Walter recognizes that this is probably an artifact, a different one from the void. Maybe this means that even the gods like Dale draw their powers from a realm different from humans. The protagonist agrees with the line of thought, but soon after he begins to weaken. Then the boy collapses from exhaustion. Caddy asks if he died for good, but the leader says the boy will only sleep for a few days. Somewhere in the great central sanctuary, a group of people walks toward the temple. The leader of the faithful carries a scroll. Standing before the gates, the man announces that he has been summoned to enter the sanctuary. Everyone bows to the three gods, the child, the man, and the elder. The one in the middle announces that the god of gold is dead. The elder on the left says that everything had already been prophesied. There's nothing to worry about, just continue with the plan. Then the smallest, with the body of a child, commands them to bring the final ingredient for the descent of the one true god. The relic of the void is what's missing. As ordered, ships are dispatched on a mission. A truck drives through the desert carrying the non-believers. Dale continues to sleep since the battle. Caddy keeps observing the relic with a certain curiosity. She tells her captain that none of this story makes sense. The relic in her hand is probably what gave Barrick power from other realms. Walter says she's right, but there's something that doesn't sit right with her. However, Captain managed to accept something so absurd so easily. In her mind, the man she knew wasn't someone who would accept anything that easily. So probably there's something he's not telling her. Walter then says it's time to explain why he now believes in the impossible. Before the First War, he was the head of research at a mega corporation called East. And there was a very strange place in the lab that even he, as the boss, could not enter. One day, by chance, Walter found the door open and, guided by curiosity, decided to enter. Not even he could understand what he saw inside. The place was very strange, and in the center, there was a printer full of papers in the room. It was a place without any apparent purpose, with walls full of meaningless drawings, and of course, the printer. It kept printing documents on its own, but the strangest thing was that the meaning of those papers was fantasy stories. Since Walter couldn't decipher the documents, he copied everything onto his phone. When he was about to leave, the printer started printing again. This time it was a set of numbers. That's when Walter heard noises coming from outside. In a hurry, the leader tucked the paper with the numbers away and left the place. Walter shows the phone containing the documents. At the time, he thought the writing was some kind of novel, but today he can recognize it. It wasn't fiction, but a prophecy. The last war, the arrival of the gods, the void, and the demons. All of it was foretold by the prophecy without a single mistake. Caddy then thinks she already understands the meaning of the numbers. They are coordinates and the date when he would find the relic and Dale, just as that mysterious place and the gods are connected to the prophecy. Because he had the coordinates, only Walter could find the relic and its bearer. But Caddy says that the prophecy ends with the death of Barrick. And that is the biggest problem. The leader doesn't know what will happen from now on. Suddenly, something hits the truck. An angelic being is the one who stopped the vehicle with his hands. The being smiles at the passengers. Walter is almost passed out at the wheel. Caddy was also badly injured in the accident. The truck is surrounded by ships and angels. One of the angelic soldiers is pleased that he found the relic. Then he presents to Sir Lu that they found what they were looking for. The squad leader says that the lords are only interested in the relic in the heart, the rest the soldier can dispose of. And before Sir Lu finishes his sentence, the angel takes a heavy punch to the face. Walter orders Caddy to protect Dale. Then the arm of the angel holding the boy explodes. The girl just finds it strange that her boss is so concerned about protecting someone who cannot die. The leader says that Dale cannot be retrieved while unconscious. At that moment, a strange item locks around Walter's neck. Sir Lu lifts into the air the man who dared to attack him. Then the angel slams him to the ground with a punch. But right after, Sir Lu also explodes from a shot. Kari runs to help her captain. But before she can, two hands lift both of them into the air. Another angel is outraged that both non-believers dared raise a hand against their leader. To him, it's an act of blasphemy. Kari has no idea who these guys are, but the leader says they are from the central sanctuary. There's no way they can handle these opponents. They have the power of a lesser god. Sir Lu finds it amusing that someone knows anything about them. The angel orders his men to deal with the humans while he handles his target. Soon after, the celestial being pierces the protagonist's chest to grab the relic, and his friends are left in shock at the scene. Dale's body starts to dissolve like ashes. Sir Lu announces that he has completed the objective and is already returning. The god in the middle says that his soldiers managed to get the relic, but he feels something is wrong. Then the other god says that his companion is always saying unlucky things. For him, it's strange for a divine being to worry so much. But the other deity also feels uneasy, because from this point on, there is no prophecy. There is no longer a future to foresee. An eye in the void opens. For the god who looks like a child, he feels something is interfering with everything. The omnipresent warned about the master of the void, and at the same time, he says this, an entity descends from the heavens. Arms sprout across the body of the angel holding the heart, until Sir Lu disappears without a trace. The divine beings say that the protagonist is dangerous. Neither gods nor demons are incomprehensible. A shadow walks toward the angels. The devourer of gods, the void. Kari asks the captain if that creature is on their side. Walter says this is the worst possible situation. Dale says there's a chance his body could be possessed by the Demon King. If it comes to that, then the protagonist says his heart must be destroyed at any cost. This creature cannot emerge into the world under any circumstances, because if this being emerges into the world, it will be the end. The protagonist is in his most terrifying form. One of the angels can't believe Sir Lu was actually destroyed, and now he doesn't know what to do. The big angel says there's nothing in the prophecy about an enemy like this, and the other angel says his companion is saying unnecessary things. They are the elite warriors of the central temple. There is no enemy capable of defeating them. Despite those words, the angel in question feels fear taking over his whole body. Without realizing it, the celestial admits he feels like vomiting. Then he tells his partners that they all must attack at once, gathering all their strength to strike at once. It will be such a powerful attack that not even one of the gods could survive, equivalent to 1,000 suns exploding. The new leader orders all the angels to advance and purify their enemy. The ships begin preparations to fire a beam. Meanwhile, a legion of angels goes on the attack, causing an explosion of light with the impact. Right after comes the flames destroying everything. The big angel asks if they succeeded, but his partner tells him to shut up. As if nothing happened, the protagonist sits waiting for the spectacle to end, and the new leader blames his partner for the failure. Sitting cross-legged, there is the void just waiting. Not even the elite warriors know why their enemy isn't attacking. Kari is also confused about what's happening. Walter apologizes to the girl. He should have destroyed Dale's heart when he had the chance. The girl asks what this thing is they are dealing with. The leader says that as soon as Dale returned to Earth, he warned that something inside him wanted to be reborn on Earth. This creature is considered a calamity even in hell. Wherever it passes, it devours everything. Nothing that enters its stomach can escape afterward, because inside it is the bottom of hell and an endless abyss. This is the absolute and infinite void. Kari says they have been released, and Walter knows they are in the void. Dale appears saying that this is the end, there is nothing else to be done. The girl asks if he is still alive, but the protagonist says that his current existence doesn't count as living. They are all in the world beyond death. The good news is that besides them, there are only the angelic servants in this place, which means the void hasn't swallowed everything yet. Not even the celestial beings know why suddenly everything became night, but the leader is sure that his target is still alive. For the leader of the angels, he finds it offensive that the non-believers dare to oppose him. The celestial being gathers all his power in his hand. Then he jumps into the void. Walter tells them to get away because it looks dangerous, but Dale tells the group to just watch. While the angel tries to fight, the protagonist speaks of the consequences of using divine powers in that place, because the void also has another name in hell, the graveyard of demons. Kari asks if they are also in danger, so Dale says it's safe because his body is possessed by the king of demons, Agni, the king of flames who sleeps upon the fire. There's also the insect that feasts on the flesh of the dead, Malak, the ruler who dominates twisted souls, Solon. Mang is the nameless wanderer who seeks forgotten knowledge. Besides them, the shadows shrouded in illusory mist, Monli, the incarnate taboo, Iros, the invisible sword that cuts stars, Noxus, and so on, even though they were devoured by the void and are now mere spirits. These entities are powerful enough to hunt gods. Walter asks if the demon in front of him was the king who ruled hell. Kari is surprised how the gods' elite is being wiped out. Correctly speaking, the angels are being devoured by demons. Kari realizes then that the protagonist must have already been in this place before, so he managed to escape at least once. Dale says there was a way to escape, but he can't do it again, because no one can escape the void without the permission of the master of this reality. The reason our hero managed to escape last time was because he made a contract. The Lord of the Void allowed him to escape with the promise that the protagonist would feed the demons powers. When Dale woke up, he realized he could pull power from Hell's demons. But the Lord of the Void could also use his body. That was always the true purpose, to devour the entire world. In the end, the only way out of this place is with the permission of the master of the place. But with the hero's body dominated, there's no reason for the master of the Void to set them free. In the end, there's no way out. Walter refuses to just sit and watch the entire world be devoured. Dale then asks what they should do because not even praying is an option. The leader of the non-believers gets angry, but before the fight gets worse, Cady steps in. The girl says it's not the time to fight while the world is being destroyed. Cady asks to make sure if the protagonist made a contract with the Void. Since that's the case, they need to make a new irresistible offer. Dale thinks there's no such thing, but the girl doesn't give up and asks what kind of power the Lord of the Void will gain by devouring the world. The protagonist doesn't understand where she's going with this. Cady says there is still a god who hasn't appeared yet. The power of the one true god, who has yet to descend to Earth. Walter asks if the girl plans to watch the descent of God. Cady says that for now, they need to buy time, there's no other way. The girl knows that her captain is against the idea, but the priority now is to prevent the annihilation of Earth. Dale thinks it's worth giving it a try. As she said, there is no other way. So the hero places the tip of his thumb on his heart. When the finger enters his chest, a black shadow appears instead of blood. With the black ink that came from inside him, Dale writes some symbols. Then he drops a drop onto the ground. That black drop transforms. A large shadow rises. Walter and Cady's concern is visible. Now they are facing a great demon, surrounded by other gigantic creatures. The heroes are tiny compared to these creatures. Then the Lord of the Void approaches them. Dale speaks in a non-human language. The most powerful demon responds in the same infernal tongue. Cady asks if her captain can understand any of the words, but even he doesn't know what is being said. The girl asks our hero if everything went well. A black hand points at one of the humans. Shadows emerge from the ground where Cady and Walter stand. The two were swallowed by the darkness. Walter keeps calling out to the protagonist, and the girl says she doesn't feel anything. Then the two are devoured by the shadows. Both wake up whole in a desert. Walter looks for Dale, but it's the girl who finds him. Apparently, the Void retreated and returned the hero's body. Now they have to wait to see what happens and return to the base of the non-believers of the Eastern Branch. Two guards talk about how the organization is a mess. Even Cady ran off and disappeared just like the leader. For one of those men, Walter's story of wandering the world after a weapon to kill the gods was the reason half the organization resigned. At that moment, both guards seem to see something approaching. A shadow in the rain comes toward the base. The guard picks up binoculars to see who is coming. They recognize that it is Captain Walter. With that, it's announced that the captain has returned and the gates are opened. Cady notices that the atmosphere is not exactly welcoming. A man named Simon is the one who receives them, without hiding the surprise on his face. Walter says his friend hasn't changed a bit over the years. Suddenly, all the men point their weapons at the protagonists. Simon says that this is just standard procedure since in recent years many double agents have appeared among the believers. Moreover, some things have changed since the captain left. A system was created to detect non-believers, and those who fail the test are executed immediately. Cady finds it unbelievable that the captain is being treated this way, but Simon tells the girl to calm down. Walter finds it funny that now they execute instead of expel. He even asks if the shareholders agreed to this and who is the current captain. Simon says he can't give more information until the former leader takes the test, and this attitude makes Cady even more nervous. But Walter says he cannot take the test, because the test means ending the lives of two believers. The idea of ending believers' lives this way makes them no different from those who live in the sanctuary. The ones who should truly be executed are the gods. Simon says that no one there believes that gods can be killed. Cady says she saw with her own eyes a god being defeated. Simon wonders what this girl is talking about. Walter throws the protagonist to the ground and says he is the weapon capable of defeating the gods. But for Simon, nothing they are saying makes any sense because all he sees is just a boy. Since no one believes what the captain is saying, he asks to take the boy to the lab. Walter needs to extract the protagonist's blood. That's why the leader came back to the base. Simon asks why he should allow that. Then Walter tells him to think about why he would return after so long. The power to kill gods isn't just the boys. Using Dale's blood, anyone can use the power of the demons for an hour. Both Simon and Cady are shocked by this information. Walter orders the man to inform the elders and the other base leaders that the final plan has begun. The God Hunters unit is ready. Everything is complete for the plan. Dale says that the true God will descend to Earth and the protagonist will hunt him down and offer his power as a sacrifice. The Lord of the Void says that our hero is getting too full of himself. He really believes he can defeat the true God with the power of a few demons. Dale begins to think that this negotiation was a failure. The Lord of the Void says that the world is not going to be destroyed yet. The part that exists inside the protagonist's body will at most devour two cities. Our hero realizes that the demons still cannot destroy the world. Dale then asks what the Void Lord's plan is for wanting to appear on Earth. Then the creature points to what it wants. The two humans who are with Dale. The dark hand shrinks the hero's companions because, as the void says, they still have uses for the protagonist. What the demon is doing is delaying its own end. Without understanding anything, the boy asks if the creature is saving their lives. As the demon explains, just as Dale needs him, the void needs the protagonist too. Our hero will be the pawn that will bring the void into the world. The boy finally understands what his role in the game is. Then the demon says there is a story older than time about a primordial wish and the end of the world that is divided into two. In this triple world and in the six realms, composed of the upper, present, and lower worlds, two forces with their own purposes existed. The infinite, the one who seeks the eternity of all things. The one who desires the annihilation of all things, the void. For countless eras, the souls reborn in the current world were drawn to these two forces, creating two beings in the upper and lower realms. And because of humans, the true God and the void were created. Born from the soul of humans, this is the purpose of Dale's race. The world of the void, where everything is annihilated, is the end of all living beings. This is the war that determines the end of the world, and that's why Dale must win. The demons shall guide him, the protagonist must simply fight however he wishes. Assuming Walter's face, because he is the one who will initiate the plan. Then Dale's face as the one who will transmit his power. Lastly, Caddy, the one who will ignite his will. This world must fall into the infinite. Our hero says he doesn't care about this fight between the gods. What he doesn't understand is why humanity and his family must pay the price. For our hero, the demon is a bastard for wanting to use humans in this eternal fight. The guardians of the void, Lord Ah and Huam, warn Dale not to show his horns in the presence of their lord. Holding the hands of the two giants, the protagonist tells them to stay out of it. Again, Dale asks why living beings must be used and not the demons who fight their own battle. And the answer is that only the souls of humans can cross the realms. In the end, the Lord of the Void says that the protagonist's desire for revenge will be fulfilled. Then the demon goes up to our hero. Face to face, he says that the boy can have his family back. At that very moment, the horns shrink again. The demon says that Dale himself saw with his own eyes the power of gold. Souls that cannot die or live become entangled together, crying, serving only as fuel for a god for all eternity. This is the true form of eternity. This is its true desire, the essence of its power. The Lord says that the souls of the protagonist's family are also part of the enemy's power. Dale asks what the demon is trying to say. Then the Lord says he will add another clause to their contract, where the hunt for the gods is over and our hero's revenge is complete, but the last words are illegible. Not even Dale can understand what he is saying as he is engulfed by the shadows. A voice says that the protagonist is moving and his heart has started beating again, and then his eyes open. Then our hero awakens at once. Apparently Dale is in a chair being monitored. Simon is really impressed that the boy came back to life. It seems Walter was telling the truth. Nervously, our hero asks who the stranger is and where he is. Then Simon apologizes to the living weapon, but he wants to test the protagonist. A robot appears in front of Dale while he is informed that everyone there wants to see the boy's power with their own eyes. If the hero really is a weapon capable of defeating the gods, then he will handle this little robot. Before Simon can finish his explanations, Dale leaps toward the weapon. The boy asks to be transformed and his hands turn black. Then he strikes the combat machine with a blow that dismantles it. Without effort, Dale is the only one standing. More nervous than ever, our hero wants to know who this scoundrel is that captured him. In a leap, the boy is already in front of Simon, who begs the hero to stay calm. Dale wants to know which side the man is on. More importantly, he wants to know if he is in a sanctuary of some god. A voice tells him that the protagonist is at the eastern base of the unbelievers, the place where those who oppose the gods reside. This person offers their hand and says that Dale is indeed strong, just as Walter said. The woman claims to be the current leader of the base of the unbelievers and that her name is Hannah. With a smile on her face, she says it is a pleasure to meet him. Hannah flees through the woods along with another person, but her companion cannot keep up and falls. The other woman who cannot walk is her sister. Desperate, Hannah begs her older sister to get up or else they will be caught. With the little strength she still has, the sister tells little Hannah to pay attention to what she's about to say. She asks the little girl to run as far away as possible from the sanctuary. Before she can continue, the girl is lifted into the air. There's nothing a human can do against a god. To them, people are like insects. Even hating the gods, fighting them is useless. Even the leader of the unbelievers is caught having these kinds of thoughts. But then she sees what Dale is capable of doing. The impossible happening before her very eyes. Humans are no longer powerless. Immediately, Hannah goes to meet this man, the person who made her happy. The future no one ever believed in. Freedom from the gods, freedom for humans. Again, Hannah introduces herself as the leader of the liberation base of the unbelievers. Dale accepts her hand and asks where the old man Walter is. Ignoring the question, the base leader says that the hole in the wall will take a while to fix, but she is happy that the protagonist is not one to hold back. Dale presses again for an answer. He wants to know where Walter is. Hannah says that her senior is a little busy, but he sent a message. The message is not to carry the photo because otherwise it will be burned, so it is better to leave the photograph here at the base. Hannah says that from now on, this place is Dale's home, so he must take care of the things that are precious to him. The leader asks if this is enough proof for our hero to believe they are on the same side. Unfortunately, there is only one room available, but it should be enough for one person. It is not a very nice place, but for the protagonist, it is sufficient. Hannah tells the boy to take a shower and change clothes, but then something catches her attention. She is bothered by the hair covering the hero's face and offers to cut it. On the sink are the remains of hair. Now changed and wearing the new outfit, Dale finds it a bit tight, but Hannah says that hero clothes are supposed to be like that. Then she takes his hand to guide him to a new place. And this act does not go unnoticed by the protagonist. Passing through the base, everyone present stares at the human weapon. No one even tries to hide their curiosity. Dale asks Hannah if everyone knows about him. The leader replies that everyone watched together what he did with the robot. On the big screen, the fight keeps playing, and she says that everyone needed to see what the weapon capable of defeating the gods could do. Everyone there forgot what it was like, a leader says. What our hero brought to the base is something vague. It is something indescribable, but the feeling is certain. Someone offers their hand to young Hannah. Walter recognizes by the girl's look that she lost someone precious. Hope is the name of this feeling, something even Dale repeats to himself. Then he looks at his own hands. The hero questions if he is what should be called hope. No, Dale clearly saw the fate of those who serve the void. One day, this demon will consume the entire world. The protagonist cannot call these powers he uses hope. Hannah says that with great powers come great responsibilities. She knows that the hero made a pact with the void. The leader said as she heard from her senior that the world almost ended. Hannah, in a relaxed manner, tells the protagonist not to worry, that this will never happen again. The leader says that they planted a bomb in his heart, so she asks him not to worry, because if anything happens, she will blow him up without leaving a trace. And on top of that, there are several types of triggers in case the first one fails. At this point, Dale already tells her to stop because he got the message. Hannah presses a button to enter a different room. Then the leader asks the protagonist to worry about the future later. For now, the focus is to hunt the gods. In a week, a first official mission of the God Hunters squad will begin. Dale is incredulous at what he is seeing. Inside the room is Walter. The old man is happy to see the boy awake and with his hair cut. He barely recognized the hero. But Dale first wants an explanation for what he is seeing. What are they planning now with that bizarre thing inside the tank? Walter explains that this thing is an organism made from the protagonist's blood. The old man discovered that injecting Dale's blood gives a person super abilities, but it is impossible for them to use demonic powers. So to use the powers of hell, they first need to subjugate a demon. But that will only be possible by extracting the serum and organism from our hero's blood. When a soldier injects the serum and calls the demon, he will summon an artificial being. The soldiers who use this injection will be called the God Hunters unit. But first, there are still many problems they need to solve. First, subjugating a demon is not something that someone can easily do, so Hannah shows a report she received. Out of 140 candidates, 100 managed to pass to the stage of injecting the blood. The next stage is to inject the serum and call a demon by its name and summon it. In theory, the method to subjugate a demon is simple. The person just needs to defeat it. In this process, 99 candidates were eliminated, 70 of them due to serious injuries. Of the 140 who took the test, only one person succeeded. Soldier number 1 of the God Hunters unit, Katarina Basic, codenamed Kati. The scientists report that everything is under control. Kati says she is ready to start training all day. Hugh is the informant leader of the Unbelievers' base. The informant asks the girl if she knows what the purpose of today's training is, and she answers that it is to beat up demons. Then Q explains that today's training will be a little different. The demons she fought before were low level. What she will face now are a level higher. According to Captain Walter, low-level demons are equivalent to a company of soldiers. So a mid-level demon is the same as a battalion. Hugh is prepared for all possible situations, which means she might die this time. But Kati doesn't think she will lose this time, because otherwise it would have already happened a long time ago. She injects the serum into her blood, then asks Hugh to watch his little sister fight without any control. With a scream of pain, the serum was successfully injected. The informant asks her, when ready, to call demon number 8, whose abilities are still unknown. Kati asks her brother to shut up and stop talking about resonance. Immediately after, she summons Palak, then something strange starts to happen. Kati asks Hugh if everything is alright. The informant says that something strange is happening. There should only be one soul reacting. Apparently, this is the meaning of a battalion-level demon. A dozen monsters are summoned for the fight. Kati draws a knife for combat. For her, there is only one way out now, which is to cut them all down. At that moment, the creatures jump on top of the girl. Then Kati immediately summons Sai. The cursed blood seems to take over even her eyes. Suddenly, dozens of demonic eyes are summoned. Before the claws can touch her, Kati can see them. Like a wind, she cuts down all the monsters. In the air, the soldier pulls a rope with a hook at the end and launches it to the ceiling to escape from the army of monsters. Kati knows that if things continue like this, the fight will never end. She knows that using 2 demon powers at the same time will put a huge strain on her body, but the girl has no choice. With that, she summons Anarch. Then Kari jumps back into the fight. Anarch has the ability to increase the user's strength, which is perfect for facing multiple enemies. Kari holds her blade with both hands and cuts dozens of enemies in half with a few simple movements. Quickly, the army of creatures was defeated. Now only one remains to be defeated. The leader of the monsters is the last one on the list. She orders Kari to retreat. They have already gathered enough data. But it was just like she said before. As a soldier, she will not retreat because she doesn't care about the data. The demon charges at her and misses the attack by a hair. The creature is faster than she thought, maybe is beyond what she can handle. In the same instant, the demon appears in front of her. In the blink of an eye, the monster grabs Kari. Now it is the girl who is out of options. Kari remembers that Walter explained that demons lend their powers according to the level of suffering of the user. But every human being has a limit to how much pain they can endure, and for normal people like her, the maximum power she can use at the same time is 2. Otherwise, the fate is either death or being taken by the creatures. Even so, Kari summons fight. At the same moment, she feels sick. But then someone else calls Braz. The demon is then cut into several pieces and Dale saves Kari at the last moment. The protagonist asks if the girl is crazy while holding her mouth. Dale accuses her of losing her mind while in pain. Walter says that from now on, Kari will be our hero's partner, and although she's inexperienced, she has a lot of grit and fighting spirit. However, by the looks of it, they have a lot to work on as a team. Dale is lying on his bed looking at the photo. The Lord of the Void says he will take the soul of the protagonist and his family to a place where they can be free. Someone knocks on the door and asks if the hero is awake. Dale goes to the door and finds one of the scientists waiting for him. The man introduces himself as Q, informant of the base. Q just came to check Dale's data. Apparently, while the protagonist was unconscious, the people at the base collected every possible type of data about him. In fact, the boy wasn't even supposed to be seeing this thing, but what Q came to do is to check something strange. The scientist says that Dale came from the east and that his family was sacrificed in a divine ritual. But this is the strange part. There are no sanctuaries where our hero came from. Now in the eastern region, a group of 3 people is on a mission. Kari doesn't understand why they have to come all the way here to check if there is a sanctuary. There are probably many explanations for what happened. There may or may not be one, but Dale says there is definitely a god in this region. He clearly remembers that there is a divine being in the place where his family perished. A mysterious god with a black halo. Q says that this information is new. Kari understands that there is a god outside the sanctuary making victims, so that's why they need to investigate. But there is probably only one explanation for this. They are dealing with an ascension ritual. What the 3 are seeing on the beach is a trace of this ritual. Kari comments that she has never seen one so big. Some gods relocate their sanctuaries to different places during rituals, but in this case, it doesn't make sense. But to leave a trace this big, it must be a god that everyone knows. Now they just need to find out who. Another strange thing is that with the arrival of such a powerful being, no one should have survived, much less a child. Even Dale finds it strange what he is seeing. Our hero comments that the ritual trace is much bigger than it should be because only his parents were used in the ritual. Q says that it's normal for survivors of this kind of situation to have memory problems or something like that. The young scientist makes a report of the situation, summarizing everything explained so far and concludes that our hero must have some kind of memory problem. With all that, it should already be enough for them to return, but Dale disagrees because he clearly remembers everything that happened. But before he can finish what he is saying, something hits him. The protagonist falls with a bullet piercing him and Kari draws her knife. 2 shooters dressed in white argue that the shot was supposed to be a warning, but unfortunately, they missed and hit one of them directly. Acting in a relaxed manner, the shooters tell the group to approach. They won't shoot again, and Q asks what his sister plans to do with the believers. Kari comments that she was already annoyed about not having a vehicle and that they would have to walk 20 kilometers back to the base. Maybe she should pray to give thanks. One of the shooters finds the girl's expression strange. Maybe she's mad because her boyfriend went straight to the afterlife, one of them comments. The shooters tell the group to move faster, and while they are talking, Kari starts running. The taller shooter comments something about people from outside the sanctuary. But at the same moment, the girl appears right in front of him. Before he can react, she advances with her blade. The other one orders her not to move or else he will shoot. Kari asks her partner what they should do with these guys. The boss said not to take the lives of believers. The one still holding the gun says that if the girl doesn't stop bluffing, she will join her boyfriend. At that instant, Dale, behind the shooter, leaves the decision to Kari about what to do with her victim. Startled, the man shoots wildly, calling the hero a monster. While being shot at, Dale says that if he is a monster, then what is someone who hunts other people? With no other choice, the man begs to be spared. Our hero asks why he should spare someone like him, and then the man says that he has a wife and children. And that catches Dale off guard. The man says he never had a choice. The believer says that God told him that if he didn't bring a sacrifice by next week, then his family would be the one sacrificed. So the man asks if the protagonist is an unbeliever, and if he is spared, he plans to become one too. Before the man can finish, he is shot. Q is the one who fired. he was finding the whole thing disgusting. The white panels on the neck represent how many offerings were made to their god. This is the symbol of the southern sanctuary. Besides, priests from the south are not allowed to marry or have children. Everything he said was a lie. Then Q opens the cargo doors of the truck because he wants to show the appearance of those who really live in the sanctuaries. A group of people with a battered look is at the back of the truck. These are the human sacrifices. Kadi says that the order was not to harm the believers, but Q says that the man in question was a priest, which is different, and the person she spared will be useful for interrogation. While the priest thanks them and teeters, the scientist says that later they can get rid of him. It seems this last part catches the priest by surprise. Now the truck returns safely to the base. Kadi and Dale watch a woman with her baby. She feeds him with a certain tranquility. The protagonist looks at her with a somewhat sad gaze. Kadi says that the reason always starts with family. Whether being sold, hunted, or anything else, in the end it starts with family. Most unbelievers chose to fight after losing their loved ones to the gods. Captain Walter lost his wife. For Hannah, it was her sister. Dale asks who Kadi lost. He wants to know if she is also in this because of family. Then she says it's no different. She had another brother. Kadi remembers the day she was all hurt. A man covered in blood and surrounded by bodies looks at her. That was the brother she liked the most. As a final warning, he says it would be better if they never met again. Kadi says that one day they will meet, and then her fate will be sealed. She will end his life. Dale gets completely confused by the course of this conversation. At the center of a crater in the northern region, someone says that in the end they couldn't predict the arrival of these events. It is no longer possible to foresee the pattern in the drifting sands. A priestess tells the lady who knows everything that the three main gods want to make contact with her. The woman then lights a candle. Then the smoke takes the form of the three gods. The one in the middle greets the one who knows everything and asks how her pilgrimage is going. She says it has been safe, thanks to the blessing of the gods. The eldest asks if the one who knows everything is not neglecting her duty with this pilgrimage and wants to know where the rest of the prophecy is. The woman says she was about to contact them precisely about that, because the prophecy is ended, and she thanks the gods for making the predictions come true. The news seems to deeply shake the three gods. The smallest one says that this news goes against what she had promised. The one who knows everything said that the prophecy would last until the return of the great Lord. But the woman says that the ones who broke the promise first were the gods. She warned them not to move the central temple servers. The one who knows everything says that probably the gods were afraid. The god in the middle says that the woman does not wish for the return of the Almighty. Then the three gods become irritated with the woman. She is just another person trapped in the sanctuary as well. Before things get more dangerous, the one who knows everything says there is still good news for them. The great god is looking for a successor to inherit his powers. Thus, the last material in this scenario for his ascension goes directly into the god's hands. Even though the prophecies have ended, she can still make predictions. And what she saw was that one of the three would receive the power of the true God, that they would defeat evil with justice, and thus power and glory would last forever. The meeting at the crater is finally over. Also, the prophecy has come to an end, and the three gods will soon part ways. Then the one who knows everything asks her assistant to report where the relics of the void are. The woman gives the perfect coordinates and also warns that the object is moving quickly. With so many variables, it is impossible for a prophecy to exist. Because of that, the priority is to control all possibilities. The favorable wind is still blowing, so it's better not to relax. Even the beating wings of a fly can cause unpredictable changes, and the breeze from that vibration can return as a gust of wind. By controlling it well, the gust will return not as a headwind, but as a favorable wind. Without mercy, the one who sees everything crushes the fly. Therefore, she says that everyone's roles are extremely crucial. The seer comments that it has been a while since the last time. Blair, the one with sacred blood. 13 deities expected for the descent. One is the deity suspected of being the owner of the central sanctuary, the true power of the three great deities who govern all regions. There are 9 deities of the minor sanctuaries scattered around the world. The current world is governed by the gods, 80% led by temples that are still expanding. So the main goal is 1. Destroy all sanctuaries and free humanity. Our hero says that Barak is already gone, so there are 12 deities left to be defeated. Walter says no, 13 already includes the one that was eliminated, but there must be more, so they must strengthen the god-hunting squad. Their first mission is to go to the northern base. The 3 are already starting to get excited. Walter explains that communication from the site was cut off, and it probably has to do with the sanctuary's expansion in the region. The mission has 2 objectives. The first is to investigate the unknown temple. The second is to deliver the base serum to the northern base. Kadi understood everything, but for her, the question is whether the team composition is right. Obviously, Dale has to go. He is essential. It is also clear the importance of Q. He has to deliver the serum, and just for the record, the boy liked his sister's comment that he is important. Now what Hannah doesn't understand is why Simon and Hannah have to go. They are officers, and it would make more sense for them to stay at the base. Hannah says she is no longer a captain. And by the way, Simon is no longer a unit leader either. But it's even worse for Kadi. Now they are useless, and the ex-leader threatens the girl because of her insolence. But the girl doesn't like that at all and wants to know if she's being threatened, and quickly Simon changes the subject. Hannah says that without Simon, the mission cannot be completed. In other words, he is the key for everything to go right, although Uniman himself didn't know that. But apparently the key to the operation is the driver. Hannah tells her friend not to be too disappointed. She says the mission is about transportation, so the most important thing is the driver, and besides, the elders are at the base they are going to. What if there's a reward? Simon asks what they could offer him, and the ex-commander says, for example, they could give him a council chair. The leader's head fills with possibilities. Simon even imagines himself giving a presentation to the elders. In front of the imaginary council, he wants to deal with a very important problem, which is dealing with the crazy and dangerous Caddy. Hannah realizes she has already secured the driver. The ex-commander asks Hugh where they are. By now, they should be seeing the sanctuary. The scientist says that according to the map, they are already at the temple site, but for some reason, they still can't see it. Hannah comments that there might be something there, but because of the dust, it is difficult to see anything. Caddy asks what the problem is, and Q responds that they were supposed to be at the sanctuary, but there's nothing around. Dale asks if his partner remembers what the old man said. Walter explains that for the gods, sanctuaries are like fences. It is like a pasture where their followers are used for sacrifice. The protagonist asks if there are temples without gods. Then the leader says that probably there is no divine being that crazy, but if there's a crazy god, yes, then it's better for them to hope they don't meet him. The group wonders what it is they are seeing. On the horizon, there's a sinister giant figure, and Hannah can't help but think that a hunter is used to setting his trap and waiting patiently. A drop falls on Simon's face. Without realizing what it is, he wipes his face. Then he looks up to see where it came from. Floating in the sky, there are several bodies bathed in blood, making it drizzle red rain. The great red entity recognizes the group as those who abandon life and embrace the path of darkness. The being considers them a bunch of fools and crushes the person he was holding between his fingers. The whole group did not expect to encounter a god right away. To the divine being, they are sinners, and sin corrupts the world. As the bodies fall to the ground, the god says his mission is to cut evil at its root. Unbelievers, full of sins, are like harmful diseases. Dale tells the group to stay behind him and his partner. The protagonist asks why they shouldn't face a god head-on. Walter says that if they do that, they won't get the necessary information. The first thing is to get close to a follower and gather data to understand the deity of the place, and then use the power of a demon more effectively. But if there are gods without believers, then the only way to gather information about the deity is by fighting it. However, entering a fight unprepared could mean defeat. The blood god gives the infidels one last chance to renounce their sins. All they need to do is give up their flesh and become part of the divinity. It is the group's last opportunity to kneel before God, embrace and enjoy the blood and the flesh. The god says he will grant salvation through blood. Dale can't believe their bad luck encountering a deity without followers. Besides, they are surrounded by creatures of considerable level. The worst part is that the non-combatants in the group could get caught in the crossfire. The protagonist doesn't know what to do in this situation. Dale asks himself which demon to use, but an attack comes toward him. Then Caddy manages to save her partner in time, but she doesn't miss the opportunity to ask what he is waiting for to act. Dale says he is thinking about how to fight while protecting those who can't fight, but Caddy says there's no one like that in the group. She says the protagonist is underestimating the group. Aside from children and the elderly, unbelievers are all combatants. Simon is an engineer specialized in all types of weapons. Hannah asks the scientist to unlock the suppressor because the two of them have been together in many combat situations. The ex-leader tells Dale and Caddy to go into the sanctuary and get as much information as possible while they stay there. Our hero asks how Hannah plans to get out of the sanctuary afterward. At that moment, Q announces that the settings are ready. As her hand transforms, she says she will create an escape route. Hannah orders Simon to keep an eye on the car, while Key must capture one of the specimens. Dylan is shocked to find out that his friend is a robot, but Caddy says that the body is a machine, but the brain is human. She doesn't know the full story, but a god was the one who did that to her body. A giant lightning blast is fired by Hannah. The whole field is cleared by the ex-leader's attack. Caddy asks if the protagonist really thought someone could become a leader just by playing rock, paper, scissors. Hannah says her battery will work while she's fighting, but she's pulling out now. Quickly, the group gets into the truck and drives off. Suddenly, something strange and red sticks to Dale's arm. The protagonist tells his partner that those weird things are still moving. Caddy believes those things are parts of humans. Dale says those things don't seem to have consciousness, and it doesn't look like there are many of them. At that moment, a light goes on in the protagonist's head. Caddy asks what her partner discovered. Our hero says he's not sure, but if it works, it will be very good. It's time to start the hunt. Q says that the creature has a strange anatomy. It doesn't look like a plant or an animal. The specimen has an energy source, which seems to be unicellular. Hannah asks what he means by that. Then she asks Dale if he discovered anything, and our hero says he has a hunch. The protagonist wants to know if the creature has stopped moving. Q confirms that the monster has stopped giving any signal since they left the sanctuary and that the specimen is unicellular, but they don't know what that means. Dale says that it is a god. Hannah wants to know what our hero means by that and correcting the information. This body is part of the god in question. The protagonist says that when he encountered Barak, it was the same thing. In the temple, that god had several gold statues that at first didn't seem like much. Later, it was revealed that while Barak absorbed souls, his body was also changing. The gods not only feed on spirits, but also on their human bodies. In other words, this is not a separate entity. The entire sanctuary is part of the same divinity. If the whole place really is part of the god, then maybe capturing it will be easier. Walter explains what they should do if the group finds themselves in a situation where they have to face an entity directly. To start, the tip is to push the god out. The most common weakness of these beings is that they cannot use their powers outside the sanctuary. But for that to happen, several things must occur. With that in mind, the first tip is weight. The god of this place divided his body into several incarnations. Compared to the original, these beings are much smaller. So what would happen if they were blown up? Dale says that the demons who have these abilities are numbers 0, 8, and 16. The power of 2 demons together. Combined into one, how strong would that be? Dale says they only have one chance. Yeez and Hig are summoned for battle. Both god hunters jump into combat. Caddy knows that for her partner's attack to work, he has to be close enough to the main body. The problem is the hordes of minions in the way. The hunter faces one of them head-on. To start, the priority is to get rid of these pawns, and that's exactly what she does. Without much effort, she eliminates them one by one. Her attacks are devastating. The enemy is unable to react. The first wave leaves only pieces falling from the sky. But unfortunately, there are still many for her to deal with. Maybe Caddy can clear a path using the power of Anax. The girl remembers her partner's words that she can't use more than one power at a time. If it reaches that point, she should run. The problem is that she doesn't have the strength to do that. Caddy also remembers others laughing at her for wanting to run, calling her a coward and weak. That memory gives her enough strength. Never again will she be that person. Caddy swore she would never run from anyone again, so she returns to attack. The hunter throws her blade, and with tremendous force, she opens a path through the army of flesh. Caddy achieved what she wanted. Now it's time to seize the opportunity. Even knowing the danger, she summons the demon Geezer. At the same moment, she reaches the main body. In response, 2 creatures come at her. In the blink of an eye, the 2 are defeated. Caddy warns her partner that the path is clear for him. In the air, Dale thanks his companion. With everything ready, it's time to put the plan into action. The leader throws a manual on the table and tells the 2 partners to memorize it. Walter explains that this document contains the possible combinations of demonic powers that both can use. Caddy and the captain start arguing because she doesn't want to study. She's lazy. At that moment, one combination catches Dale's attention, a power to be used against multiple enemies. The demon Higgs has the ability to manipulate gravity. Geezer, on the other hand, can control mass. Using the power of gravity to gather the enemies, the mass control ability would make them heavy, maximizing the power of both demons, causing the enemy to be crushed instantly. But there was also a warning about this combat tactic. Higgs' eyes are materialized in the protagonist's hand, and all the red bodies are concentrated at one point. Caddy plants her blade into the ground. While the enemy is sucked into a gravitational center, the girl tries not to be pulled in two. In the sky, a giant ball of flesh is formed. This is the moment when Dale signals to his partner. Caddy then strains to summon Geezer. At the same instant, she felt her weight increase. The remaining creatures are crushed, and the sphere of bodies begins to compress. Dale asks the leader about the warning. The excessive use of mass with high gravity can cause injuries to allies after a certain point. Walter explains that the pressure will start at the center of the enemy, and it will increase with intensity. As the intensity rises, the temperature will also climb until it reaches a critical point. At that moment, a great explosion will occur. Dale dives towards Caddy and summons another demon. That's when the great explosion happens. The blood god just stares at the flames, until his face melts from the heat of the explosion, and his entire body turns into just a skeleton while the protagonists are protected by a giant hand. The explosion is so strong that the protection is not enough. The shockwave reaches Dale and starts affecting him too. Bodies are flying everywhere. Caddy tries to help her partner. That's when they hear a voice mocking their efforts. The god says the best they can do is cause an explosion to push their kin out of the sanctuary. The celestial creature asks the true god, the scourge of the new world, what he is worried about. In a swift movement, the giant being approaches the humans. The celestial wants to know why he was given the power of blood and life, and if it has to do with these insignificant creatures he is looking at. The mention of blood and life catches Dale's attention. The god is going to share an interesting fact with the humans. All the blood in his body produces thousands of cells for him to use every second, and whenever a foreign organism is identified, the production of white cells increases far beyond normal, multiplying up to 10 times more than normal. Dale pushes his partner away before it's too late. At first glance, there is something wrong with the new monsters. These new creatures seem stronger. The ability to create these things constantly is terrifying, but there might still be hope. Except the protagonist's hand has a bizarre reaction where he got hurt. Apparently, the last attack wasn't something normal. Suddenly, Dale's body is covered in blood. Caddy has nothing she can do to help her friend. The divine being says humans are a disease and he has a mission to fulfill. All the unbelievers must be exterminated for all eternity. Dale thinks all this talk from the celestial is nonsense. For For the protagonist, he doesn't see salvation as taking people's souls and turning them into puppets. But for the god, healing comes through the suffering of the body. The essence of life is not the body, but the soul that echoes through eternity. The god continues his speech that salvation comes from pain, flesh, and blood, but the protagonist interrupts him with a scream of hatred. Dale tells the god to shut up. For our hero, the gods are the plagues of this world and must be exterminated. Before the protagonist can finish, he is swallowed by flesh. In the shape of a heart, the blood god challenges the human to fulfill his promise of extermination. For a moment, there is no movement where Dale is. Kadi just keeps watching carefully. He asks if he should activate the bomb in the hero's heart. Even apprehensive, Hannah says it's not the time yet. Then something seems to happen. Something strange is taking form and Molax is summoned. Kadi felt something was wrong at the same moment. Even the deity notices that everything is trembling. Hannah's assistants think it's an earthquake, but she knows it's not. She knows exactly what it is. Finally, the demonic possession is happening. The worm that devours the flesh of the gods, king of disasters, Molax. Dale is tiny compared to the giant demon. With its enormous tail, the infernal creature crushes the protagonist. Molax wants to know who had the audacity to call him by name. Our hero says that he is the one who summoned him because he needs his power. Dale asks for a pact with the giant worm. In the same instant, the tail hits him again. In an instant, the protagonist is crushed. Molax finds it absurd that someone would ask for a contract with him. Dale tells what he knows about the demon. He heard that Molax is the reincarnation of an ancient god forgotten by all, and that's why he desires greed and infinite power. By eating the flesh of ancient bodies, gaining strength. But the protagonist knows that devouring such corpses doesn't grant any real strength. Molax says that the human knows nothing, but Dale makes the promise to feed him. For a moment, silence reigns. The protagonist promises the demon that he will hunt the gods who descended to Earth and gives his strength to the giant worm. Molax admits that this human does not have an ordinary soul, so he asks who the hero is. Dale opens his chest to the demon. Then he explains that he made a pact with the owner of the void. The human offers his body as an empty vessel, but not to hunt death, but rather the living gods. First, it is his hand that wants to be transformed. The legs are revealed soon after. The contract is to tear them apart at will, to hunt freely. Kadi is witnessing something unique. She knows this is the demonic possession. Even the god is confused by what he is facing. The flying figure wants to know if the giant is the Ta of the living god. The demon says he will harvest the power of blood and life. Back to when the group was preparing to leave on the journey, Walter calls Kadi to talk. The leader advises the girl to be careful. The hunter says that suddenly they now have the power to defeat the gods, so why should she be careful? Walter says that precisely because of that they must be careful. For Dale to defeat the deities, he must be possessed. Kadi has no idea what he means by that. Being possessed is not the same as summoning powers to use. It is an ability where you literally give your body to a demon. The spawns of hell are certainly enemies of the gods, but that does not mean they are on the side of humans. Molax prepares a spell in his hands. He orders the living god to spit out all his power, and that's what his army does. Even the divine being tries to resist the creature's command. In vain, because soon after he also releases everything. Kadi realizes the air is poisoned and that she is also in danger. With no option, the hunter runs away from the conflict. But along the way, something catches her attention. A strange portal in the middle of the desert. Too late, Kadi feels sick from the poison she inhaled. But she knows she cannot fall, not there. At the last moment, someone appears and puts a mask on her. Hannah flies away with Kadi. Not even the former captain imagined that a possession would be so severe, as there is no trace of Dale in that body. Molax finds this body better than he expected. The god now is certain he is facing the plague of the new world. The deity says he was wrong. He believed that his enemy was a disease, but he is rotten flesh already far beyond cure. Molax finds the choice of words amusing. In a way, the demon believes the god is right. The divine being says the only treatment for his enemy is to cut and throw away the rotten part. Right after the last words, the giant attacks. Webs of blood come out of his hand, and they head towards the demon, who doesn't seem very shaken. But the ancient creatures made of cells appear to protect their new master, and these monsters explode into millions of pieces. Not even God himself understands how his own flesh and blood turned against him. Molax is surrounded by his new slaves and jokes about being the god they want back, because if that is the case, he will return them. With a silent command, the demon orders the attack. A wave advances towards the deity and hits him hard. Not far away, someone seems to be watching everything. A drone records the fight from a safe distance. Simon cheers madly for Dale to win the battle, while Q tries to find a spot to see what's happening. Hannah appears at the same time asking for help. She urgently asks for an antidote. He asks if Kadi was injured because of the god. Hannah applies the injection while explaining what happened. It was the demon who did that to Kadi, and that leaves everyone confused about why Dale would do it. The former leader says it was not her partner, but the demon. They need to be careful with him too. Simon says it looks like the fight has come to an end. Even Hannah finds it strange that the battle ended so quickly. But the worst part is that Dale has not returned to his normal form. When the protagonist fulfills the promise to give power to the demon, the possession will end. He says that's what the captain said, but if the contract has not ended yet, there must be a reason. Cotting wakes up and says that is not the main body. She remembers seeing a strange gate inside the sanctuary. Besides that, she saw other alter egos guarding the gate, and that would not make sense if they were fighting with the main part. A god would never create a figure in his own image. Molax says it is not enough for him. Looking at the enormous corpse, the demon realizes that it is not him. Kadi says that surely there is a separate version of the divine being. From inside the portal, Molax hears a voice calling him. The voice says that the demon will never be able to defeat him. Then the gates finally open. Inside, the voice says he has the mission to save humanity. But what about the demon? What does he fight for? The god says there is no reason for them to fight. He is the sacred blood, while his enemy is the disease. Therefore, humanity will never be defeated by someone like him. The god of blood rises from his chair and notices that it is not just his enemy's appearance that has changed. He wants to know if the demon is the weapon capable of killing gods. The divinity concludes that the trick is being possessed. A hellish being used as a tool by the unbelievers seems pathetic in the eyes of the god of blood. Molax makes a slight movement with his hand. All the organic floor is torn apart by the creature's power. Hanging from the ceiling, the divinity assumes the demon's goal is to absorb his power. So the Lord of Blood will give the creature the power it wants. But first, he wants the Void artifact. Those who are watching wonder how this god knows about the weapon. Hannah has a good guess. That is why the northern base lost contact. She remembers the theory that the divine beings are probably humans. Walter places the artifact on the table and says his suspicions were correct. In terms of structure and characteristics, this thing is identical to the Void artifact. Probably the gods are like Dale, humans who use powers from another world. Blair Yan, a name every respected unbeliever knows. Known as a saint who saved many lives. Leader of the Northern Unbelievers base, that is Blair Yan. But somehow this person turned into a god. The one who knows everything says that the gods are trying to save humanity. Blair is outraged at the woman saying that after so many casualties caused by divine beings, how can she say such a thing? But a tremendous pain knocks the base leader down. It seems that a piece of rib is piercing the man's heart, but luckily, she is carrying a spare heart. Gladly, the one who knows everything grants Blair an opportunity. The seer promises that everything will make sense. The Master of Infinity has already planned everything. Fortunately, ignorance is not a sin, but the foolishness that comes from it is a kind of sin. The one who knows everything offers the man a place beside God. It is not the humans he needs to cure, but humanity itself. The new Blair promises to save the entire race from death by taking the demon's heart and carrying out God's plan. While the divinity continues his long speech, Molax gets irritated and moves behind his opponent. Without realizing it, Blair is surrounded by claws. The tips trap him so that the demon can suck his power. Molax opens his chest until he reaches the source of the power of blood and life. But Blair wants to explain why he cannot be defeated. Since the demon entered the room, he has been digested, because this temple is inside his stomach. Molax is pierced by a giant hand coming out of the god's back. Then the demon's body explodes. The infernal creature crawls on the ground. But it is not defeated, because for Molax, being inside the god's stomach is incredible. The creature vomits a black energy, but Blair manages to defend himself. However, that attack was just a distraction. Molax dives in with all his might to attack the god. The demon is going to forcefully open the way to the heart. The divinity tries to repel the next attacks with his magic. Blair concentrates an energy at the tip of his fist and creates a spear that impales the creature. The energy tries to destroy the creature's body, but Molax sucks the energy from the attack. The two super beings advance against each other at super speed. Both collide, matching in strength. The demon and the divinity stare each other down. Molax finds it funny that he was devoured. But in the end, the creature continues its hunt. The demon promises that if Blair surrenders, he will spare his soul. But the confidence quickly returns to the blood god's face. It seems that digestion only starts after some time. Hundreds of hands hold the demon, and Blair says that if he wants to hunt, then he shouldn't have entered the prey's mouth. Because of this foolishness, the divinity believes he has won the fight. Like a surgeon, Blair is ready to begin the operation to remove the heart. But suddenly, something doesn't seem to be going well. Molax says that the god is a fool, making this room his interior. Blair remembers the first attack and fears what the creature injected into him. In the end, the blood god was always the prey. From the start, there was never a fight, and with those words, Molax escapes from the hands easily. Yes, the demon was hunting, but that doesn't mean the prey cannot resist. Otherwise, there would be no fun. What the creature injected into his body was a disease capable of destroying the world. In other words, it is a plague from hell causing decomposition that should happen after death to occur while alive. In the inflation phase, the entire body swells. In the second phase, the fat melts and exits through all orifices. Now in the decomposition phase, the flesh melts. In the discoloration phase, only the back and bluish skin remain. The rotten body of the divinity is impaled, and the artifact comes out the tip of the tail. As promised, Molax will leave the soul inside Blair's body, so he can enjoy his end without anyone interfering. In the end, the demon turns back to dust. Still conscious, Blair notices a vehicle moving. In his final words, the fallen god speaks to the Master of Infinity and apologizes for not being able to complete his mission. But he accomplished the most important part, Inside the car, no one notices that part of the divine being is still alive. Blair thanks for being allowed to send a small seed of himself to the new world to come. His seed is strong enough to enter the tank. Inside, it joins another mass of flesh. Combat Agent Miles, 37 years old. Another agent from the northern base, Elena, 23 years old. One more identified, Arnav, 52 years old. 1387 other faces were identified. All the unbelievers from the northern base were sacrificed in the region's god's ritual. Furthermore, the identity of the divinity was identified. But Walter freaks out with rage at what he discovers. The leader is completely broken by the latest discovery. He cannot believe that his childhood friend did something so horrible. The question that remains is, what happened? 15 years ago, Blair, standing before a classroom, says that in his perception, life is a simple but efficient machine, a product of billions of years of chance, built with the tools of probability. But what about a program that turns this complicated, complex production into something conscious? Religion calls this program the soul. It is what guides the machine. Every decision you make says who you are. The decision to take a taxi instead of a bus. The decision to accept a religious person's opinion. Just like that, this is the algorithm. It is what converts inputs into vision, sound, and touch. Then these signals are sent for interpretation by the brain. Thus, we live our lives managed by this algorithm. For this man, there is no such thing as a soul, but it seems someone in the room disagrees. Immediately, the professor calls out the student who spoke, even though he didn't intend to be heard. With no choice, the student shows the news directly from his cell phone. The news says that the rumors have become true. The anchor reports that lately a source confirmed that unethical experiments to confirm the existence of the soul were identified in the East. Today, a regional representative confirmed the rumors. The man says they managed to identify the existence of the soul in the human brain. Continuing, the scientist says they didn't do it just for research purposes. Blair recognizes the young Walter on the news. Later in the city at night, the two friends are in a bar with Blair, still incredulous about the discovery of the soul. There's also the embarrassment the young scientist went through at the lecture, but for Walter, it probably wasn't that bad. For Blair, it was bad enough. Still doubting, the young professor asks if what they found is truly a soul, or just something the laboratory nicknamed with that name. Walter says that, in reality, things don't make much sense. Not even he knew about it until recently. The scientist hands the evidence to his friend and says that the company plans to do something with it. Blair is even more impressed that there is proof. This is the two-ball experiment. When a particle is launched into the vacuum, it will hit one of the two buttons. The buttons are triggered randomly, welding one of the balls. The probability is always 50%. Then a prediction experiment was started with a person observing. But two groups were created and one of the people was informed that the ball would fall to the right. It should not have changed anything, but according to the data, people who believed the ball would fall on the other side increased the chance of success to 52%. And the gap kept growing as the number of participants increased. People's belief was determining the future. The first signal the brain gives when making a decision is called the soul, but it's more like free will. Blair says that 3 years ago his friend brought a strange novel, and now this, which leaves another question in the air: what kind of company conducts these experiments? But not even Walter knows what his company intends to do with this information. Blair asks if his partner's wife is still the president of the East, but the scientist says that he and his wife are no longer together, for the simple reason that she is traveling for work and he misses her a lot, and his friend almost has a heart attack with this joke. Walter asks them to leave and he pays the bill. Blair sees the family photo and something clicks in his head. He asks if the reason is Walter's daughter. This whole crazy story about souls and ridiculous experiments is for him to believe that the soul was still alive. But the scientist says that actually it's the opposite. Once, Walter went to visit his deceased daughter, and there he met a man who said he hoped people were wrong about death being the end of life. A life without an end and an existence without meaning. Death is not the turning point of life, but rather the beginning of growth. Anna's life, his daughter's, was not taken away. What this research shows is that Anna completed her life by putting the final points herself. Now he must honor her death. Changing the subject, Blair asks where his friend's wife traveled to. But the answer he gets is that she went far away. She went there, to the moon. Apparently, the business trip took her very far indeed. The scale of the rich is on another level. But looking closely, you can see a crack on the moon. Blair seems to notice it for the first time. The wound on the moon is still there today. That is the last sight his dry body can have. A woman was sent to check what happened, and apparently Blair's body is neither alive nor dead. Now the punishment or reward will be administered by the great and only God. She invokes the presence of the omnipresent being. The moon becomes the eye that will judge the Lord of Sacred Blood. The great eye observes Blair's soul. Still young, the doctor swore to dedicate his life to saving humanity. Later, there's the same man with his broken promise and a weapon in hand. Walter tries to wake up his partner so they can leave quickly and catch the plane. But Blair wants to try to help a fallen woman with a still living child. While there is still time, they run with the baby in their arms. Humanity had finally come close to extinction. Because of this, Blair could not care less about his oath. He just wanted to survive. Even so, something made him want to save that child. Breathless, inside the plane, they almost stayed behind, so Walter asks how the baby is. At that moment, not even Blair knows how to answer that question. The plane escaped the war zone. Soon, a great explosion knocks down what was left of the buildings. 5 years later, at the Northern Unbelievers' base, the war was over, and the world they knew was now just a shadow. This is a hopeless world that fell into the hands of the gods. A man appears calling the commander. It seems a patient urgently needs him. Blair keeps asking himself the same thing. Why is he still saving people? A woman waits outside for the operation to end. Does he do it for humanity or a sense of justice? The woman asks if her husband will survive. The doctor gives her the good news. She almost breaks down crying when she learns everything went well. If Blair had known it would be like this, he would have studied surgery. But the truth is that for this man, there is no such thing as a cause. His son grabs his hand to get his attention. Blair tells the child not to call him father, otherwise he won't be able to get married. Then the doctor scolds the child because he had already said he didn't want him in the surgery area. But the boy just wanted to give the chocolate cookie he made for his father. Now he remembered why he keeps saving people. It's because of this boy. With that, the only reaction he can have is to hug the boy. In this world, life is a spark amidst a storm. All he is trying to do is protect him with his hands, until the storm passes completely. He wants to see his boy shine a little longer, since the boy is just a spark. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Blair blames himself for not being able to protect him. It seems that the people from the sanctuary have been kidnapping and ending the lives of all the children they find along the way. And it seems that the children had sneaked out of the base. Blair can barely speak. The leader tries to say that this child is his son. He couldn't protect him. Is death the complement of life? How can Walter look at this and say it is the complement of life? The one who knows everything says that death can be cured. The true God gave Blair the mission to cure the death that plagues this region. With the power of blood and life, he will be able to perform this miracle. Blair will have the power to bring back all the subordinates who lost their lives, including his son. All will be resurrected in the Elysian fields. Thus, all souls will be able to enjoy eternal life. Immortality is an idea that catches Blair. He remembers Walter saying that death is the complement of life, one complements the other. The doctor cannot accept that death is something natural, but he would rather be destroyed and end his life as a human than join the race of these lunatics. Blair makes a vow in his son's name. He will never let them destroy his child. The one who knows everything says that the man only says that because he does not know the joys of eternity. Blair tells the woman to shut up and stop talking nonsense. To her, ignorance is not a sin, but being born foolish and living in ignorance, that is a sin. The seer says that the vessel they found is still full of impurities, but even so, he is the only one chosen to receive this power, so she asks the other woman to show him a little of the truth. The woman makes a movement, and with her divine magic, she seems to cause great pain in Blair. The effect is devastating on the doctor. The seer then asks again. Again, she offers him the power of blood and life. Without much sense, he accepts the heart. Again, the seer says that this is a gift from God. The one who sees everything tells Blair a new secret thing. In the present, a tear falls from the dying man's eye. There is a feeling of regret that takes over his soul. He wonders what he has done. The woman warned that living a life of ignorance was a sin. It was no use asking a demon how his powers were stolen. It was said that Blair's punishment should be the return of human suffering. But he managed to complete an important mission. The girl claps her hands, and a gush of blood flies between her hands. Now he has been cleansed, so he will not be stained by any more sin. In the future, they hope to see him again in the Elysian fields. Trisha is alone holding a stained cloth until someone who is late arrives. She scolds the man. He can never be late or early for the creator's plans. There can be no more variables. The first affiliate of the Northern Sanctuary, Cillian, does not seem to care. Then the guest asks if the girl called him to confess. Trisha says Cillian is a great comedian. She tells him to go to the northern base of the Unbelievers. It will be a gift for him. Cillian does not seem comfortable with these ideas. He asks if something went wrong with the Almighty's plans. This should be the sanctuary of the new god, but apparently, it met the same fate as Barrick. Trisha asks if he is doubting God's plans, but Cillian says that's not it, but that two entities have been defeated, and if the great god's plan is the defeat of the other gods. Trisha does not accept doubts. The girl snaps her fingers and activates her magic, because doubting is a sin. A slashing attack almost hits the entity, and the building is cut in two. Cillian thinks this is a harsh answer to an easy question. Does the great god plan to compensate for the defeat of the other gods? At that moment, two people appear to protect their lord. Trisha finds this another funny joke, and she will write it down. Apparently, these two are still very close to their lord, the second affiliate Ren, and the third Nadira. Trisha says that the omniscience plans are the will of the true god. That's all he needs to know, and now she is leaving. Cillian asks why he should go to the northern base. She replies that he will only find out when he gets there, but it is something he has been searching for all this time. For the answers of God to be fulfilled, he needs to be there. Trisha hopes he enjoys her gift. Nadira keeps provoking the girl for a fight, but Ren says she should have done that before she left. Cillian finds all this conversation strange, and his partner did not like the other woman. Trisha is a servant of the omniscient and the great creator. The god asks if his colleagues in the last attack killed the orbit, and they apologize for it. Ren says he felt like he was stabbing something he couldn't reach. Stillian says that more importantly, her attack seemed like something that had no power, a force that not even he could stop, someone who is neither god nor demon. Who could this Trisha be? But Nadira doesn't care about the true identity of that lunatic. What matters now is that they are going to open some presents. Stillian remembers that the servant said she gave something he has been looking for a long time. At that moment, the god seems to understand what she was talking about. The group arrives at a cave entrance. Answering a question from Simon, this is a base that was restored inside a mine. Moreover, this is the most famous place among the unbelievers. This is the Northern Region's base. He says he already expected the facilities to be intact, but there is no one left here. Kadi finds the place very familiar. Hannah first orders Simon to find a room to let Dale rest, then Kadi should look for a store with serum samples. She and Q will search for the control room to inform the Eastern base about what happened. Eastern base of the unbelievers. Captain's office at the base. A soldier reports that someone from the east is trying to contact them. Hannah tells the leader to prepare for the news she has, but Walter says that after the last report, nothing will shake him. The group leader does not know what report they are talking about. Then Walter tells everything that happened on the mission. The commander only knows about it because of her. But the problem is that Hannah did not send any report. Despite the shock, everything that was said is true. Checking the history, the northern base sent the report on the day the ritual happened. Apparently, it was the blood god who did it. Walter says this was not an act of help. He says it is a warning with two meanings. The first is that the unbelievers' base is no longer a safe place. The cracks appeared on the moon as soon as the war began. These same fissures reveal the location of all the temples. Thus, the bases were chosen far from the sanctuaries. In Q's opinion, maybe now it is dangerous for the unbelievers to hide all in one place. But Kadi, who is listening, appears and says that now that they have the power to resist oppression, it's better for everyone to stay together. But Hannah's real concern is that people will discover the truth about Blair. Walter agrees that this would cause chaos and even surrender. Could be the end of the unbelievers. Kadi doesn't care about the cowards. For her, they can release the truth. What she wants to know is the meaning of the second warning. And then someone answers that the defeat of the two gods was always part of the plan. Stillian continues the answer and says that the unbelievers still do not understand the whole picture. The god thinks Trisha's response is too complex, but he loved the gift. This is definitely a love confession. He invites her for a date if they meet again. Kadi recognizes the man beside her. Stillian says hi to his little sister. A man with a cane orders everyone present to fight. He commands all those unborn children to show no mercy. Only the winner will be allowed to be born. The power of all beneath your feet is the promise man makes. Tear the flesh of your brothers. Drink the blood of your sisters. The divinity commands everyone to enjoy the grand carnival. The first anniversary of the victor is being marked by the descent. Stillian tells his sister that they have come too far, there is no turning back. Out there is the same as here. If they don't do what is necessary, then the two of them will fall. Both must survive at any cost. The problem is that Kadi lived and talked with these children over the past few years. They are all of her friends, and as she says these words, her brother interrupts her. Stillian warned her not to get close to the weak. Kadi knew all along that it would end like this. After all, this world is ruled by the law of the jungle. Then the entity proclaims that here, in this northern sanctuary, power makes right. But something seems to catch the divine being's attention. It seems that something very interesting is happening. These two are the victors. Happy birthday to both. Now they are born under the authority of the Northern Sanctuary. The god asks the Great Father to welcome the new children, and to give them power and names. The great power of violence, Sven. Stillian says it has been a long time since he saw his little sister, but she is still hanging out with the weak. As Kadi triggers the injection, she says they are no longer siblings. Afterwards, she will summon Geezer, who has the power to counterbalance. Soon after, she calls for Anak, who gives more strength. Together, the tip of the pin transforms into a weapon. In a desperate attempt for it to work, she strikes him several times while screaming in hatred. But she quickly notices the truth. Her attack only scratched him. Stillian admits that Kadi learned some interesting tricks, but she is still weak. The pressure to get up is immense. Kadi calls for Geezer again. Even under all this pressure, Stillian rises while saying that now he understands why the father is looking for her. He managed to identify that these powers are coming from the artifact, and even worse, she is destroying her hair. Stillian says that his sister has improved a lot compared to the past when she would only run away. Kadi's rage takes over. She no longer flees from fights. Hannah orders the girl to get out of the way. As she prepares to fire, the group's leader recalls the man's words about them being weak. All the energy is being charged into this shot, but her arm is cut off. At the worst moment, Rain enters the fight without anyone even noticing. Still, the swordsman says that she is weak. It took too long to charge. This is a very bad situation. In his right hand was the heart-bomb sickle of Dale. Stillian seems to notice something. He warns Rain that the void artifact is somewhere in the facility. Both women wonder how he knows that. The swordsman has already searched half the building and found nothing, and Nadira is checking the rest. Walter is about to shout a command to everyone in the room, but the transmission is cut before he can. Nadira accidentally stepped on something she doesn't even know what it is. It is at that moment that her communicator rings. Quickly, she is informed about the artifact. While receiving more information, she accidentally bumps into someone. Simon mistakes the girl for a survivor from the base. Immediately, Nadira confirms that she found the target. Celian, impressed, asks her to grab it then. Then he tells his sister that they will leave together, and if she refuses, he will use force. Caddy challenges him to try to force her to do anything. Everyone there realizes what she is doing. Q is the first to shout for Caddy not to go ahead with her plan. The girl summons Shimolo. Hannah asks if she has ever done something like that before, and Q says it's the first time she is summoning a first-class demon. It is believed that not even Dale can handle these creatures. This is the unit's last resort, summoning the name of an untamable demon in the absence of an artificial organism. The entity ends up possessing the summoner's body. Caddy asks the Infernal to kill Celian. Not even her brother believes what he is seeing, because at the end of the process, the summoner will perish. Caddy reads that there are 1024 low-level demons, 256 mid-level ones, and 108 high-level ones. But she freaks out with the amount of things she has to memorize. Dale gives her the tip to memorize the names of the strongest demons to use as a last resort. Caddy asks if her partner is telling her to manage her downfall properly. It is better for her to waste her life differently than she did last time. Although she likes how smart he is, Dale considers himself smarter than her at least. Somehow, Walter thinks these two kids strangely match. Then Caddy searches for a high-level demon name to summon, but for some reason the list starts at number 2. Walter explains that the first is hard to rank because he made the podium organized by strength. Dale says she would never be able to control this creature, and as he goes to say its name, she tells him to be careful. It is Shimolo, and it doesn't matter who is calling. This demon never answers his summons. Moreover, Dale says this is the strangest infernal he has ever encountered. To begin with, this demon has never been in hell, but in the void, and it was also the first one the protagonist encountered. Shimolo is his master. Katie then asks why he doesn't answer Dale's summons. The answer is because the master does not come when a man calls him. Shimolo is very pleased, since he loves to answer the call of young women. But the demon is pissed because Dale did not show up to receive his master. Without any hesitation, Celian hits the creature with everything he has. What Caddy's brother wants to know is who this creature is, and more importantly, what he did to his little sister. Shimolo even considers his host's name to be very beautiful. Soon after, the creature turns into smoke, then appears behind Celian asking what his relationship with Caddy is, and if they are of the same seed but from different nests. Already losing control, Celian grabs the demon by the face, again slamming him into the ground. But once again, Shimolo escapes through his fingers. The demon finds it funny to have been dragged into a family fight. The creature guesses that the two don't get along. The creature wants to know why the man isn't using his divine powers. Maybe he's afraid of hurting his sister's body. Rain takes advantage of the opening to attack and tries to cut off the monster's neck. At first glance, the attack is extremely successful. But with great seriousness, Celian asks what the hell Rain thinks she's doing. The swordsman says this is a special order from the father. Caddy must be taken, alive or not. Apparently, not even Celian knew about this. At that moment, Shimolo's body is moving. The demon makes a sign with his hands, and his neck reattaches. Soon after, Shimolo finds it amusing to have found another interesting person, but Rain does not understand how she is still alive. Quickly, Celian steps in front of his partner, and he bangs his fists together, activating his powers. An energy field forms around him. Shimolo also brings his hands together, and the demon begins preparing his trick. Then he makes another sign with his fingers, and hundreds of cuts are launched at the fist barrier. Celian's arms are all injured, but the demon prepares a magical signal, and a barrage of cuts comes from above. With that, the barrier is completely destroyed. Hannah wants to know how long Caddy has been possessed, and Q replies, it's been 5 minutes. For the group leader, that amount of time makes no sense. The scientist says that by his calculations, she should withstand it for at most 30 seconds. Both have no idea how she is managing it. Q asks if the ability of the first demon Dale spoke of is real. Caddy doesn't understand why the strongest demon is weak. Dale tries to find a way to explain. His master is weak in his own way, but that explanation doesn't help. Dale says his master is just an old demon with only one extremely ridiculous ability. Shimolo is definitely having fun. Rain says they need to finish the fight soon. The swordsman has already used too much energy outside the sanctuary. Celian tells them to deal with the opponent's hands first. Every time the hands touch, some ability is triggered. Soon after, Celian charges into the attack. Shimolo finds it funny that the boy still has energy, but now the demon needs to fulfill his promise to the lady. Celian traps the creature's hands and strikes it, giving his partner the opening to cut off the demon's arms while it's blinded. The Infernal's limbs fall, and Rain celebrates the success of his attack. Shimolo says that his opponent planned to stop him from completing his mantra, but the demon asks if Celian knows the meaning of these symbols. Yet the boy has no idea where this conversation is heading. Shimolo says that everything has meaning, and every meaning that man creates has a name and a power associated with it. Dale says that his master's ability is something that neither god nor demon can use. The master's identity is that of a void contract from a previous world who hunted gods with an army of 72 demons. Cute. Hannah read several times about the ability of the contract, but they couldn't imagine what it meant. Shimolo summons the names of infernals that no longer exist. Dale feels nothing. He doesn't see, he doesn't hear, and he has no sense of touch. All of his senses have disappeared. Maybe this is death. Probably the old man has won. Not even Dale knows what he was thinking when he shoved that stone into his heart. Maybe it's all a feverish dream. His memory is all confused. He doesn't know how much time has passed. Maybe it's been a year, 100 years, or perhaps 1,000. Dale can't even say who he is. The protagonist wonders if he will fall to pieces into the infinity of the void. Miraculously, the boy remembers his family. Suddenly, Dale manages to hold onto something. A voice says it is happy that the boy has arrived and has been waiting an eternity. The lifeless eyes are satisfied with what they see despite it being a boy. Shimolo agrees to make the contract with Dale, and he must call him master from now on. Celian wakes up in the middle of a field of flowers. He doesn't even know how he ended up there. The only certainty is that his head is exploding. And apparently, Rain is also in this strange dream. The swordsman tries to find out if this place is real, and Celian thinks they are inside Caddy. In the end, this place doesn't seem like something good. But suddenly, Celian notices something wrong. Both face something very strange. In front of them, there's an extremely bizarre creature. The shock is so great that they don't even notice the gigantic robe passing by their side. Throughout the field of flowers, these monumental monsters walk like simple animals. Both don't know what to do if they will be attacked or what is happening. But it seems the monsters are not interested in them. Suddenly, something inside Celian begins to move. Something comes out from under his skin, and this thing grows like a seed. Then it opens like a flower with a tiny creature inside. Celian's mind completely glitches. His reaction is to crush this strange thing. It seems that this thing was born from his power. Rain reports that her power is disappearing. Celian says he feels that someone has been watching them since they arrived in this place, and it's coming from behind them. A rift opens in the air. Shimolo points to the staff and asks the boy what that is. Dale thinks carefully before answering that it is a wooden stick, but the demon hits him for the wrong answer. The boy is already frustrated. The creature just keeps hitting him instead of at least giving him a hint. Shimolo says it is not a staff, a stick, or a pipe, and again he asks, "What is this staff?" Again, Dale searches for an answer in vain, and the demon says he is correct. The Kain is what is in his mind. The gods are born from the meaning that humans create. Dale answers, and he also knows that demons are born when things are forgotten. Therefore, all should be free of meaning. That is the best way to deal with a god. Demons can fight gods, but not enough to annihilate them because they cannot completely escape their former meanings. Those that are unpronounceable, those that exist outside these realms, have escaped all logic. Those are the true enemies of the gods, and knowing how to deal with them, the protagonist can deal with anyone. Practice perception without seeing. One day, Dale will need to use the power of the unpronounceable ones. Someone explains to the visitors that they are now in a different and deadly realm. Trisha advises that from now on, they must never look back. She created an exit. All they have to do is walk backward and follow it. Celian wants to know why he can't turn and look back. Trisha says he shouldn't be curious. She asks them to block any thoughts and convince themselves that nothing is happening behind their backs. Again, she reinforces there is absolutely nothing behind them. The beings of this world, one of those who cannot be named, have no meaning at all. Until one day, a soul was born and a name was given to it. I will call this a flower and assume that there must have been a soul that began to create meaning in this world. Every decision that one alone makes shapes reality, but among them is the decision to create meaning. Then a god is born. In the demon's world, this place is known as the upper realm, and the obsession of a being who became known as the god of flowers began. A desire for more work, a longing for more divine authority, and an obsession with eternal immortality. A suffering from the obsession even after becoming a demon persisted. An obsession with a lost pain and a forgotten name. This was given by humans, becoming the very frills that created its obsession, but originally you never wished for a name. Being sent to the void was a form of salvation to spare you from suffering. Trishara, that is a name that does not suit her, according to the demon. The creature asks how she managed to return, or rather, why she returned. Trisha says that the demon knows very well her motives. In the end, she intends to challenge Providence. To the girl, Shimolo still understands nothing. The one whom the demon serves is not Providence, but rather the curse. But the monster thinks that this is just a way of seeing things. Trisha warns both of them that all they have to do is walk backward. No matter what happens, they cannot turn around. It is only 4 steps. With that, they begin the walk. Shimolo recognizes that the girl does not intend to return from where she came. For Trisha, this is the farthest she has managed to go. The demon does not understand why she strives so much. She is willing to be sacrificed just to disturb Providence. Even under attack, Shimolo continues to wonder why she acts like this, because she was his first disciple. Trisha acknowledges that it has been a long time since she last saw her brother. Or perhaps he does not recognize his own sister. The great entity of flowers clasps her hands and activates her divine magic. The boys take their second step backward. Rain wonders if they are doing the right thing since he thinks he feels something behind his back. At the same time, a side effect happens on the swordsman's arm and Celian tells his partner to stop thinking about what is behind them. But Rain doesn't care, he wants to seize this opportunity. His father's belief, the Lord of Violence, taught him to face the strongest to become the strongest. And right behind them there is something more powerful than anything they have ever faced. The third step is taken and the swordsman decides to stay. The gigantic hands are cut by magic. Trisha makes the same signs that Shimolo made in the last fight, and a lightning bolt rises from where she is. The fighter is almost fully transformed. For some reason, the strange creatures are now flying across the field of flowers. The giant being stares at the small planet, and its gigantic mouth opens to swallow the globe like a black hole. With a single bite, the planet disappears. On the fourth step, he is back. Celian returns alone from the other world. A man asks why he is the only one. Celian admits he only returned because he made a choice in his moment of vulnerability. The Lord of Violence knows that his son encountered a much stronger enemy, and in his shame, he admits that he acted only with the intent to survive. First, the god orders his son to prepare the rituals. The giant entity is torn apart, and Shimolo admits that his apprentice is stronger. Trisha says that once the demon gifted her with great meaning, something that had been completely forgotten, erased from all words. She tried to gather similar meanings, but the concept itself had disappeared. Once she was taught that to truly be free from suffering, one must abandon one's own name, and yet the loss of meaning gave her more power. Trisha says that he used this to deceive their poor brothers, turning them into mindless weapons, but they too had names, and then she recites all the demons. Shimolo asks how she still knows these things. It is because, even after being swallowed by the void and being transformed into a demon, the true name never disappears, which is why the suffering is eternal. Although there is indeed a way out, she is the first of the 72 Ball. She will destroy the providence of the world using the power of the great god. Shimolo cannot believe what he just heard. Destroying providence is something impossible. Ball thanks him for knowing the meaning of her true name. The demoness, with her powers, manages to separate Shimolo from Kati. Then she sends the girl to where Celian went. The divinity comments that his son succeeded in his mission. With these powers, Baal can even divide herself. She has the ability to connect with her parts from different realities. Baal can see all realities, all times, and dimensions at once, and in one of those places, she found him. Shimolo seems interested in what she is saying, because she says she found the one who knows the power and the true lessons of God, the first and only being. Then the demon asks if God gave her any answer. A single and silent answer. He's about to descend. Shimolo says that there were 108 exterminations of planets that turned into hells. Even so, in none of those times did the true god appear. Now, thanks to Baal's information, the demon knows he can hunt the great divinity. Then his former apprentice asks if her master really believes that the child can defeat the creator. Shimolo says that Dale is far from ready. A halo of light surrounds the demon. Now about the great hunt. He's going to take it personally. With that, the infinite mouth swallows his adversary. But Baal throws the giant teeth far away. She says that would not be possible, not even if the demon used the power of all his brothers. Shimolo knows he won't be able to use all his powers. But here in this reality, maybe he has a chance. With that, he summons hundreds of demons with unpronounceable names. Even Baal cannot believe this feat that her master accomplished. Shimolo says that if he cannot defeat God, at least he will manage to defeat his former apprentice. But that is not her purpose to fight her master. It is to incapacitate him right there. Apparently, the demon forgot what her ability was, for he fell into her trap. Again, she splits reality, taking advantage of the old man's arrogance. With that, the greatest obstacle was eliminated. Rain observes everything and contemplates the true form of Trisha. Then Baal asks the one who sees everything what she should do with this variable. The seer thinks they can use him. Somehow, he might be useful. Hugh says he managed to make a connection for them to communicate with the base. Hannah says her arms seem to have returned to normal function. But her concern is to know if her group is okay, and Q says that at least Dale is alive. Surprised, Hannah asks how he knows that. Apparently, she forgot that they installed a sensor in the protagonist's body. However, being weak and strange, she worries if Dale is still alive after everything they saw. They should have placed a sensor in Kati. She has the biggest doubt at the moment. Hannah finds it very hard to believe the girl is alive after summoning such a high-level demon. A voice says the girl is fine, that girl is tough as nails. Then the creature asks the group to release him, if it's not too much trouble. Rain doesn't like being called a variable at all. Baal says that the Omniscient also foresaw that there would be some complications in the plan. The swordsman disagrees, he chose of his own free will to stay. Therefore, he is not a variable, it must be someone else. Taking advantage of Hannah's lap, the little monster says he is Dale's master. Kitty seems to have tracked a follower, and apparently, one of them is very close to where they are. At that moment, Dale enters, wondering what this bunch put in his blood. They seem relieved, and Q asks if the protagonist managed to defeat the temple followers. But Dale has no idea what he's talking about. Then Nadira arrives at the temple, introducing herself, all happy that she returned with a relic. As her lord described, it was a handsome man with short hair. For For some reason, Nadira finds Simon very charming. The god punishes the girl, making her walk only on her hands for a week, but she takes it as exciting training. Ring is absolutely sure that the variable is Nadira. For some reason, Nadira is nervous about being punished, and apparently it's Simon's fault. But not even he knows what is going on, he was simply kidnapped. This girl is completely crazy. Anyway, Nadira explains that Simon now has only two options: either he passes the test or he perishes. But the guy has no idea what she's talking about. Apparently he has no clue that he is in the sanctuary of violence. It doesn't matter the reason that brings people to this place. Everyone who steps into the sanctuary must prove themselves. A sphere comes flying toward the prisoner. Nadira is hoping he proves he is not a waste of time. She explains that everyone in the northern region has one of these. With this object, she is giving him the power to create any type of weapon. Simon finds it funny that she is giving weapons to the person who is going to be sacrificed. From the father of the sanctuary, he doesn't care about anyone's origin, and besides, no one ever said he is his sacrifice. From now on, Simon is part of the family. After that, she pushes him, but only if he survives. Nadira is really hoping he lives. The guy is her type. When he returns, she truly hopes to marry Simon. The rules are simple. Only one can remain standing. Ball says she doesn't care who the variable really is. In the end, the greatest obstacle has been removed. But there is something she needs to confirm. She wants to know the true reason Rain stayed. Moreover, he better not lie. The swordsman then says that his true goal was to find someone. He wants to make a contract with the demon Nuss. Rain heard that this being has been looking for someone, so he came here. Ball is impressed with his ambitions, so she will let the swordsman meet him. Shimolo tries in every way, but he cannot escape from his prison. He finds other genes in the body of the little demon. Hannah wants to know whose DNA is mixed in, but the probability is only one. The one who sees everything explains what Blair's main mission is. It is to neutralize the existence of the Demon King and the leader of contracts, Shalomo, blocking his profane mouth, binding his arms and legs. That was Blair's true mission. In the end, they have merely been following the god's plans. But in the end, none of that matters because they need to go save Caddy and Simon. However, Hannah is against making a hasty decision. It seems there is still a prophecy that the gods are making them follow. Shimolo asks what kind of prophecy they are talking about. Hannah tells about the predictions that were written in a book. The demon takes it for himself to analyze what she said. The conclusion he reaches is that this is not a prophecy book. At that moment, the captain appears again on the big screen. The little one recognizes Walter as the pig that Dale mentioned to him, although the protagonist defends himself, saying he never said anything like that. Walter also knows that the little creature is Shimolo. The demon thinks everyone there's a bunch of fools, because the book is not a prophecy, but a message. That's why there is no such thing. The future is not something fixed. The future has millions of different branches, and what will happen is drawn by cords of recognition of believers. And the many avatars of these cords are souls. If all these spirits are forced to believe in one thing, then that future will be chosen. Because of that, this cluster of souls that is being united is the true power. Looking at this prophecy book, you can see some events, but no cause is recorded. Every time the gods interfered without a real cause, their goals were blocked. So probably these texts were sent to induce followers. But most importantly, the gods cannot interfere with human choices, so they can go save the girl without fear. To be sure, Q wants to know if Kari would have died if she had summoned another demon. The demon says that would not have happened to her at all. He says that she's a power, but no one understands what he means. Back at the Northern Sanctuary, Kari is awakened by a giant hand. She wakes up with two beings holding her by the arms. The father says he was worried about her, but it's good that she was brought back to him. He feels very lucky to have the most powerful daughter, capable of using both divine and demonic powers. Simon falls seemingly forever. The fall is so long that he can think that this is his end. Even if he doesn't want it, that it ends this way. There are things he needs to apologize for, and things he hasn't accomplished. Simon also wanted to finish some tasks. There's much he still wanted to do. Suddenly, his weapon comes to him. He remembers that the crazy girl gave him the ability to create any weapon. Probably he can do it just by imagining. It's worth a try, so Simon tries very hard to use his head. He imagines the best weapon the Eastern region ever created. With much effort, two hands appear to hold him. But it didn't last long. Maybe he needs to imagine with more detail. Anyway, he's alive at least. A hologram appears to start the games. It's time to see who will be the chosen child of the sanctuary. Simon thinks these guys are crazy for even making the non-believer compete in this test. The presenter says that in this game, only the strongest prevails. All he has to do is prove his worth. Then the chains are released. From now on, he must survive until the end. For that, Simon will face 100 opponents. The odds are not in his favor. A boy breathes in deeply and then exhales. He has been training every day for years to become part of the sanctuary. His fate, his family's, and his villages depend on this sword. He can feel the power flowing through all the fluids in his body. Nothing will be able to stop him now. Surely he will win this challenge, because there are promises he needs to fulfill and people he must protect. so he will win for all those who believed in him. The swordsman is ready to begin. Now he can fight until he's the only one standing. With that, the door to his challenge opens. Holding his sword, he fears nothing. Even in a room surrounded by powerful enemies, everyone stares at each other, ready for the inevitable. The boy grips his sword firmly. He only asks everyone to wait a little longer, because he will come back. But then a slash happens, and a creature turns the boy into mincemeat. The creature doesn't even know exactly what it did. The presenter says that here, despair is useless. In reality, what makes you strong is not your past, because where you come from doesn't matter. Who you are doesn't matter in this place. Forget the process and show results. The monster flees and starts slicing everyone. No one can stand against him. In minutes, he is wiping out everyone. The creature is the only one left standing. With its super strength, the monster seems to fly across the environment. Then it jumps as high as it can and roars for everyone to see, but is hit by a bullet. Game over for the monster. Brute strength helps, but it does not guarantee victory. It is better to use a weapon. That's why humans are stronger than animals. A fighter thinks it's funny that people are still fighting with knives. Another one comes at her and she takes him down with a shot. Then she moves toward another group and uses her ability at the tip of her foot. With that, she propels herself into a jump. Two more are taken down, and then she lands in a perfect superhero landing. For her, everyone there is a bunch of fools. If someone is going to use a weapon, at least they have to know what they are doing. Using these tools, humans were able to defeat animals, but that's not what they are facing now. The shooter notices a strange movement. Apparently, there's still someone standing, but the bullets have no effect. What she is facing, in her view, is cheating. They are fighting human with a weapon. This is a different story. To win a fight like that, you need a bigger weapon. The robot prepares all its attacks. The explosion destroys the entire room. There is not much left of the place. Even Simon can't believe it actually worked. The candidate has been decided. He will now be reborn. But the presenter receives a message before completing the sentence. Apparently, these are orders from the father himself. The order for this recruit is to have a final test, a special opponent for him, and apparently it's someone who leaves the presenter speechless. Someone storms into the room. Simon knows exactly who she is. The number 0 member of the Northern Sanctuary. It's his companion, Kati. Someone asks the name of the child, and the mother replies is Katerina. The man orders her to get rid of the child. He also doesn't understand why she had the child if she cannot care for it. Kati is then abandoned in front of an orphanage, until someone finally calls out to her. Then the nun says that the boy just got a sister. With this news, the boy's eyes fill with joy. One day there was a city, but today that is not the reality. At the gates of the Northern Temple, a small group introduces themselves. Killen and Katerina are the names of the children. The guardian finds it admirable that the children have managed to come so far. Now the boy takes the name of the father of time, Killen Svensson. The same happens with the girl who becomes Katerina Sven's daughter. The little girl repeats her new name to herself. Humans receive a name after they are born, but they are not humans. They are servants of the gods. After receiving a name, they cannot face their birth. When a person is born with a new name, they gain a purpose with the gods. This is what it means to serve the divinities. Kati tries to recognize her own body upon awakening. The father congratulates her on her first meal. Then he gives her first mission. After that, come the rewards. Of course, there is also the first casualty. Servants can be recreated as long as their master exists, for this is Catherine's second life. Simon is happy to see his companion. But before he can continue talking, the attack comes. Catherine says that in this second life, she will never disappoint her father. Somehow, she made a mistake. If it were before, this man would never have escaped. Simon's response is slow and calm. First, he checks if he was really injured. The soldier thinks his colleague has gone too far for a joke. At the same moment, the girl attacks again. Simon tries to ask for time, but it's in vain. At least he manages to raise a defense. The girl pounds the shields furiously. Catherine becomes completely ecstatic. All Simon does is call for help from Kati. Her small version is fallen injured. Walter and Blair find her and recognize the origin of her uniform. The doctor is frightened to learn that she is a servant of the temple, so much that Blair asks his friend to step back so he can handle the situation. Servants normally have a mark on the eye, but this girl also has no powers, so she is not who he thought she was. Walter says he heard rumors that the Northern Temple kidnaps children to make them into servants. The captain wonders how she ended up there. Suddenly, the girl moved, and the young Kati awakens. Little by little, her eyes open. Walter even feels relieved that she's okay. Disoriented, the girl doesn't even know where she is. The captain tries to apply a medicine on her, but the girl reacts fearfully. The ointment is to reduce the pain. Then he asks if the girl is okay. Finally, the commander introduces himself as the leader of the unbelievers of the South. He wants to know her name. Walter remembers that the day Kati met him, she wanted to change her name. The demon says that names are important. Gods are born with a meaning and servants with a name. They can be rare, but sometimes the original consciousness returns to the body when one of them perishes. Dale recalls that his friend got very upset when someone tried to take her body. But this power had never been detected before, so it's not simply a mechanism. It is supposed to be something that doesn't need to be hidden. The power is the magic of the gods is above any means of tracking. Both are worried about Kati. Shimola finds it concerning the possibility of her becoming a servant again. Never had the demon seen someone like her return to what they once were, let alone twice. All they can do now is go after their friend. When the time comes, they will decide what to do if she has returned to being a servant. When the time comes, they will know whether they must defeat her or save her. Walter has an old memory. His daughter gives a strange name to a hair tie. The little girl doesn't care because it is a valuable gift for her, just like everything her father and family represent. Later, the hair tie called Basacha is given to Caddy. That is the name of Walter's family, and if she's okay with it, the girl can have the same name as his. Catherine continues to relentlessly attack Simon's defenses. Little by little, he feels pressured. She's almost regaining all her lost sensations. Simon is at his limit. He feels like his brain is going to explode. Since it's like that, someone tells him to rest. In a second, Catherine retreats. The partners have an option. Before seeing her, the protagonist believes she could be saved. But now it's kill or be killed. Dale tells Simon to run as fast as he can, but Catherine doesn't allow it. Of course, our hero steps in front and Simon leaves the scene wishing him good luck. The servant doesn't have much to do now. Dale warns that from now on he will fight for real. So he expects her to use everything she has to survive. But the funny thing is that Catherine has no idea who the person standing in front of her is, but there's only one answer. Dale goes to battle because he is her partner. Shimola reflects on the information that the one who gave her power was the god of violence. The abilities of this god that they know so far are that the stronger the opponent, the stronger you become, and the ability to create weapons from imagination. The demon says that these things don't matter, but rather the meaning of violence, although this time for Dale, it will be quite difficult. Q says that the protagonist has already defeated 2 gods, but the next challenge is one of the 3 strongest. Maybe this time even a servant could defeat our hero. Shimolo says there are 2 things that determine the power of a god. The first is the number of followers, and the second is the meaning of their name. Although the last gods had many followers, their names had weak power meanings. The more specific the name, the weaker it is. The more ambiguous, the stronger its power. This information is etched in the minds of everyone there. Walter agrees that gold is a type of metal and blood and life are easy things to classify. But violence is the opposite. As promised, Dale doesn't hold back. He flies like a bird into the attack. Catherine recognizes her opponent as the relic of the void. The girl manages to dodge the attack. With her power, she forges a weapon. It's a surprise to her that her target simply appeared in front of her. The hammer strike causes a fire explosion. Dale says the destructive power was great. Now the accuracy was terrible. He's starting to think that his partner is going easy on him. Or maybe in reality it's something else. Maybe she still can't control her body. Quickly, she transforms her weapon and cuts off her opponent's arm. For some reason, she aimed at the arm instead of the heart. There is conflict in Catherine's gaze. Apparently, there is still hope. Caddy is also fighting for the body. Her servant's side swears that this time she won't disappoint her father. She seems to struggle a lot against herself, but slowly Catherine wins. Her arms stop trembling, and she attacks Dale again. The protagonist comes to the conclusion to leave this fight to his partner. The trust in his partner is so great that he says he will use demon number 23 to react properly, and the hand alone gives a thumbs up. There's no way Dale can avoid smiling. The demon gluttony is summoned. An army of skulls rises from the depths. Actually, those were the backs of a giant monster. A huge monster with the body of a fish. Swimming through the air, the demon goes to its summoner. Next to the 2, the creature is monumental. Its movements are destructive to that place. Catherine closes her eyes, and when she opens them, something has changed. She's inside the whale, just like Pinocchio. Dale says he knows about her ability to evolve by fighting strong opponents, so he thought of a way to defeat her without strength. Catherine asks what the plan is, but it's still the same. Dale will defeat her and bring his friend back. Suddenly, the protagonist stabs his own chest. She has no idea why he's doing that. Before she can say anything, she feels an invisible attack. Dale explains that in this hell, all pains are shared, but only the pain, injuries are not affected. Dale shouts for Caddy to listen to him. From now on, the protagonist will do everything to defeat her, so she can go all out. Catherine finds it confusing that the protagonist is trying to save her while at the same time wanting to defeat her. But that won't stop her. She jumps into the fight. Catherine says it would have been easier if he just stabbed himself and ended it quickly. The sword attack carves a road into the flesh, but it seems to go wrong. Dale says that if she's trying to escape, it won't work. It's only possible to leave there with his permission. And as mentioned before, all sensations in that place are shared. The demon screams in pain. Catherine can also feel her own attack. Despite her own anger, he says there is a way out. Just 3 times, Dale asks. Catherine just has to endure 3 different pains and he will let her go. So it's better to start the fun. Young Dale finds himself in training to become resistant to pain. Shimolo says that in hell, the boy will have to deal with many things, and if his mind is not prepared, he could go insane. There are places that even he, a demon, does not want to go, but the protagonist will have to go deep into them to make contracts with infernal lords. The training method will be very simple. Dale just needs to endure 3 different pains. Really, the idea is simple, but the demon tells the boy not to get excited. They are the worst pains of the underworld. Shimolo summons Gluttony to start the training. Both are devoured by the whale, and it's time to start with the first one. the pain of Sweebluer. A demon with an insect appearance is summoned. Catherine didn't expect to have to deal with moths. Dale then crushes one of the creatures. Immediately, the girl turns into a skeleton. This is the pain of death, the inevitable moment of failure. It's something every human can imagine. Physical pain does not compare to the suffering of the soul. As Catherine herself has now realized firsthand, even an insect that dies can feel this same pain. Incredibly, the girl is not frightened. That's because she has already experienced this sensation before. Only Dale never imagined she would give up at this part. Now it's time for the second pain. Catherine feels strange. It's as if she is transcended. No word can explain. The purest infinite pleasure. Ironically, this is a sensation that the end of life can cause, and it was only possible because of the sacrifice of hundreds of insects. The problem is the emptiness that comes right after. It is full of pain. The fall into suffering after pleasure is unimaginable. Catherine is struck by the corruption of pain, and it's worse than anything she's ever imagined. Nothing prepared her for this. And when Caddy appears and asks her to give up, her counterpart seems surprised to see her. Caddy says that if she backs down now, she agrees to live with both internal personalities. But Catherine's side is deeply offended by the offer. Since she insists so much, there's no other way. She herself will cause the third pain. Shimolo says that now only one is missing. Young Dale begs him to stop. Then the demon asks if the boy has already given up on avenging his family. With those words, he reminds him of his mission. And that's exactly how the demon likes it. In fact, the creature that swallowed them comes from the worst of hells. Surely the boy has no idea where Shimolo wants to go. The next experience is from the same hell from where that whale comes. Catherine asks what the third pain is. The answer is empathy. She will be forced to strike Caddy to understand her, and thus she will experience the agony of despair. Catherine is sent to a completely different place. She sees the great ocean. The version of her little brother appears and says he was looking for her everywhere. Only the little girl was holding a kitten. The kitten's name is Mio. It seems the animal is suffering. Her adult version can't tell if this is a memory or something different, because she can feel everything. All the small, calm, and warm sensations. Even the smell of the place. The sound of the waves breaking on the beach. Maybe she is starting to understand what's happening. This is not a simple memory. It is much more than mere realism. The feeling of hands holding her. The warmth of the cat's fur. It is an excuse with comfort. Catherine can feel all of this. This is the experience of a human child. But where is the pain? The young girl cries in mourning. Catherine can only watch everything. She cannot understand this feeling for the cat. Someone comforts her, saying that everything that is born must come to an end. A nun says that life without death is the same as never being born. Because of that, Caddy was so attached to the cat because it was something precious. Only with death is this possible. Besides, it is not the end. One day they will see each other again. Catherine says she can endure this pain. One day the house is normal, then comes the end with the light and the new world of the gods. Then a stranger arrives at the house. The nun is thrown to the ground. The masked men say they are not here to hurt her. He knows that the woman has the duty to save lives. The place looks like a well-kept orphanage, although at first glance there are no children here. Now the world is broken with the war and the weak are falling one by one. Taking these children would be an act of mercy. That's why the masked man wants to know where they are. The nun wants to know if their god will treat them well. Exactly how the children being dragged by the hands will be treated. But the nun says it's too late. God has already taken everyone in that house. The people in that photo died in the war. Then the woman describes how each of the children was taken from this life. In the end, the nun blames herself, saying it was because of her weakness. But right after, she gets punched. The masked man knows there are still 2 children living there. He already knows everything, and as he says this, a noise comes from under the wood. Trembling, the 2 siblings try not to draw attention. Unfortunately, the masked man finds them. In a desperate act, the nun bites the man. The sister will never let him take them. Kadi falls into despair, while the nun begs the children not to come out from hiding. In anger, the masked man ends her life. The shock of the scene is inevitable. After that, the invaders still try to talk to the children with a fake smile. Catherine wonders if these tears are the pain of despair, but Kadi says they are still far from it. She's already starting to get scared. At that moment, something strange happens. The cabin is destroyed and it is raining blood. The invaders are all annihilated. A man clears the way for the passage of his god. On that day, the children were saved, but not of mercy. Yes, by an existence stronger than anything. An existence that remained above all, and led her to true despair. The god of violence, Sven. By chance, the god sees the children. It is the first time they see a deity, at the same time as they witness violence. Sven then calls his servant. He asks to bring some water and food, then to deliver it to these children. Because there is a prophecy about this event. The one who sees all says that for the path to the sanctuary, there will be 2 children with intact necks, standing on their own strength, the first son of violence, and the second daughter of chaos, who will have the blood of god and demon in her veins. Sven invites the 2 to his sanctuary. He leaves enough food and water for them to reach his temple in a week. There the god will wait for them to turn these children into the strongest. With these words, the deity goes away, leaving them alone. Her brother asks little Caddy not to cry, but she can't help it, though her brother insists. He asks her to remember the nun's words. everyone in the photo, including even the cat. On the hill, the sister finishes her prayer. She knows that in this current world, things have been especially difficult, but she prays that the two of them survive at any cost. All of them are gone for a reason. It's because they were weak. Caddy finally stops crying. The boy gives his sister one last hug and swears that he will survive no matter what, transforming himself into someone truly strong. Looking back now, maybe Killian's obsession with becoming the greatest started here. After that, they immediately began their journey. Their odyssey becomes stronger, all because they had to survive. Was there no other way? Thinking about it now, both had to go through harsh training. Over time, the reasons faded away, leaving only the desire to become the strongest. In the end, that was Fen's goal. The reasons, as time went by, became more and more distant. Their trainer says that both of them have not yet been completely reborn. They are still trapped inside the eggshell. They must escape it to be properly born. To break the egg, it is simple. Other children there are also going through the same training. Everyone is being taught to steal, lie, betray, and take. They must steal power from their brother, because that is the essence of violence. The brother was the first to break the egg. With that, he awakened as one of them, stealing the power of the one who taught him. At the moment her brother became one of them, he was no longer the person she knew. By becoming a member, his personality was changed. Perhaps the old person disappeared inside. But even so, Caddy must save him. But how to preserve his true self? Maybe it's by not breaking the egg, not stealing, but instead fleeing. She won't be strong like that, but she will survive. Because she hasn't forgotten her reasons, she will survive. Getting strong comes later so she can save her brother. For years, she lived on stolen bread and no one ever came after her. Caddy takes advantage of a distraction to grab more supplies. While eating, she also listens to the story. What she hears is that someone died in combat but came back to life. One of the men asks if the father modified the person's body, but no one there had ever seen Sven care about anyone. The real problem isn't that the person came back to life, it's that the person restarted with the personality from before becoming a member. With that, she thought she could save her brother, but she was wrong. He was too strong for her. Caddy hates seeing this person talk as if he knows her. All she wants is for this false version to leave her brother's body. The problem is that his personality never really changed. A group of slaves holds up a giant torch for the god to light his cigar. Sven, bring your smoke in peace. One of his servants informs him that the ritual preparations are complete. Then he orders them to bring Cillian to him. This is the southern sanctuary, ruled by the god of violence. The rituals of this place are divided into 3 types. The first is a fight until only one is left standing. The second type is a battle between 2 groups with one winner. Today will be the 3rd type of ritual. Cillian, the first follower of the sanctuary, is ready to begin. And so Sven pierces his own hand in order to give his blessing. Fight without fear is the order. Cillian takes the blood with his own hands. He then recites the ritual mantra. With the father's blessing, he will fight without fear. Afterward, the young man bathes himself with the blood. Using violence, he will fight. Cillian flies out of the sanctuary and lands on the battlefield, facing a battalion of warriors. The 3rd ritual involves the strongest follower against many others. This is the only way to stay on the throne with the god of violence. Besides, this was her chance to defeat her brother. For some there, even though he's the strongest, this is an act of madness. Another man thinks it is insanity to face Cillian with so few people. Then the fight finally begins. Not for a second does Cillian lose sight of them. The 2 fighters attack at the same time. Without hesitation, the first attacks with everything he has. But he is immediately countered. The first is thrown far away. Then Cillian disappears in the blink of an eye. The movement is too fast to follow. He starts preparing his magic. 2 others come at him together. Cillian clasps his hands, and 2 giant thumbs crush them. The strongest follower wants everyone to come at him at once to end it quickly. Without hesitation, one of them takes the lead. As requested, everyone charges together. Then Cillian makes another hand sign. The Colosseum suffers a massive explosion right after. Not many are left standing after that. Caddy is one of those still resisting, but he is much stronger than she expected. Cillian finds his sister amid the chaos. One of the combatants tries to take the opportunity, but he's like a fly. Everyone who tries their luck meets the same end. They are thrown like insects to the ground. Facing her, he is finally happy that Kat has revealed herself. A large group tries once again to seize the new opportunity. Cillian then punches the air quickly, and it's as if he shatters reality. Kaimi watches helplessly at the damage done. It was at that moment that she realized her plan was very naive. All those years of secret training were useless. While she lived hidden away, her time was wasted. Because her brother had reached a place far beyond her reach. Observing his sister closely, he could confirm that the rumors of her always running away were true. Cillian says she can't keep living that way. Since their father might suspect, he needs to leave some battle traces on her. With that, he punches his sister. Only she is weaker than he expected, but she doesn't consider herself weak. The girl survived. Cillian says she just hasn't died yet, it's different. That's because she has only been running and breaking her promise to the nun. That's when Caddy begins to realize that maybe her brother's personality never really changed. Cillian says he made 2 promises to survive and to protect his sister. He thought that by becoming strong, he could do that, but in contrast, she only became weaker. What makes him strong does not make her strong too. If she hadn't run away, maybe he could have kept his promise to the nun. so he will at least keep one of his words. Cillian asks his sister to sacrifice him and take his power. Everything is a choice, from the act of saving a life, or simply choosing left or right, of naming things and giving meanings, even being born and dying. All choices come from a moment of reflection. That's why all the time you are trying to have the best option, but you don't always get the best results. Sometimes you only have the worst option. Cillian begs his sister to take his life. Katie was sure that her brother's consciousness had been altered by the sanctuary. That's why she doesn't understand why he is trying to sacrifice himself, since everything he did was get stronger to live. Cillian starts forcing the blade against his own neck. Katie begs him not to do it, even promising she will never run away again. He says that one day she will realize that this was the best option she ever had. When they meet in Elysius, Cillian promises to explain everything to her. With that, he pierces his own flesh. Katie collapses without any strength. She can still remember everything exactly in detail. The despair she felt that day, and also the look her brother had. Sometime later, she heard rumors about Cillian. To rescue him from Sven's clutches, she decided to stop running. Dale tries to comfort her at that moment. Katie doesn't know who she is. The protagonist failed his mission, but she doesn't understand what he means she returned. Yet Katie still feels confused. She still has the memories of the follower. Dale says it's because she isn't Katie. The girl becomes even more lost. The little demon wonders what the protagonist wants, messing with the power of the 20th hell. Q says that this was the plan they had set up, but Shimolo says that is not the only reason. The demon believes that the hero must have created a counter plan if his mission failed. Maybe Dale chose to save the follower instead of Katie. The demon of the 13th hell not only had the ability to split sensibility. Pain and the powers of all the hells are tied to the reason why these hells were destroyed when they existed in the physical world. The world of Agnes was consumed by fire and Molax was disastrous. Eula's world perished because of empathy. Dale never imagined that could happen. The world of Gula was divided and plunged into war. People couldn't understand each other, so they couldn't respect each other. One day, God descended to that planet to resolve all the conflicts. The power he used was empathy. Simply, all people were connected, sharing all experiences and becoming one great individual. For a while, there were no more problems. But conflicts disappeared along with individuality. Competition disappeared along with progress. One day, everyone reached the same conclusion. Unfortunately, salvation doomed the existence of all. Alone in infinite space, it was more painful than all the conflicts they had. They came to deep thoughts because there were no more challenges or problems to deal with. Over time, the 23rd humanity became extinct. Using the power of that demon, Dale knew she would enter Kattie's consciousness. He thought that by having her memories, Catherine would return to being the person she once was because, like it or not, one is the mirror of the other. Again, she doesn't understand where he's going with this. She says she is the real one. But the protagonist says that most of her is already dead. Walter cannot believe that Dale would make such a choice. The demon asks what choice he thinks the protagonist will make. Why do they think the Void chose Dale? It was Walter who gave the relic to the boy, and it was because of revenge and hatred against the gods. The Void and mourning they left behind. Maybe all of this was coincidence. The reason Dale was chosen is that he can choose between the lesser and the greater demon. In the first world, there was a different name for the contract of the Void, the one who is the savior of the lesser evil. Dale made the choice he could. Now it's her turn to make the same. Whether to live as a servant of Sven or within Kattie's consciousness, she is free to choose whatever she wants. Dale now has to meet with someone who is waiting for him. He needs to welcome this person. Shimolo tells the boy to never forget the true nature of humanity. Wanting is always wanting the best choice, and that's what the gods offer. In return, they take away all your freedom. Dale must save humanity by preserving freedom. Sven finally meets the one who holds the contract with the Void. The god of violence asks if Dale really believes that fighting against the divine is the best option for humanity. Choosing between the lesser evil and the illusion of freedom is the hardest choice to make to evolve the species. But only in this way can humans save themselves. Dale says that his master taught him that there is no such thing as the best choice. Everything is just options. The god's servant says that the bearer of the relic interrupted the ritual and defeated Katharina. But Sven thinks that's good. Then the god orders all the servants to be called and prepares the final ritual. Because tonight he will take the artifact with his own hands and claim the great and only god. The servant begins his presentation. Drums play according to the rhythm of the words. Today everyone will witness a new world ruled by violence. On the night of the full moon, everyone will watch their father, the omnipotent power. The music becomes more intense. Everyone heads to the Elysium. Sven is summoned from the blood, the great and powerful god of violence. With the cloak of blood, he presents himself to everyone. Sven raises his hand and gathers his energy. He strikes downward in a blow that somehow hits the demon Gluttony. With his fist touching the ground, he manages to achieve his goal. The demon falls back to earth, then gives way for Dale to appear. Finally, they meet. The announcer gets excited when the bearer of the relic appears in the Colosseum. Judging by his appearance, the boy looked normal and weak, nothing special to anyone there. All those present are very tense with the spectacle. Sven only wants a promise from his challenger. He wants Dale to fight with his best ability. But if his attack does not satisfy him, then his friend will meet his end. Our hero seems to have few options, and he better not even try to save him. Sven has total control of this place, but if Dale attacks with everything, then he will spare him. The god wants to see it at any cost, violence being subdued by something stronger. But Dale says this place is where the god has full control. It's very convenient for a fight. Then the protagonist asks if Caddy has already decided, but she says there's nothing to decide, she has returned, so she will take care of them. In the next second, Caddy is facing her brother. Again, they have met. Nadira is surprised that the girl is alive. Caddy says it's about time they settle things once and for all. Dale knows that Sven didn't expect this outcome. The god admits that his daughter has changed, but the protagonist tells him not to worry, Sven will like his attack. Now Dale asks the god to choose between his left or right arm. Which one does he want to be hit first? But there is no answer. Since that's the case, he'll use both hands, starting with the right. Sten says he is weak for being so relaxed with such a simple attack. Then the god snaps his fingers. He doesn't like the protagonist's arrogant attitude one bit. With that, Sven wants to teach our hero a lesson. The only rule that separates the weak from the strong is violence. This is the only feeling that brings purpose to humanity. Something starts to happen to the god. His form begins to change. He uses the blood to create more arms to fight. Sten wants to show violence transforming into truth. Now it's Dale's turn to choose which hand he wants to be hit by. He who rules the Northern Sanctuary, the god of violence, Sven. He possesses up to 4 arms. One is the power of chaos. The second is apprehension. The third is the arm of exploitation. Lastly is destruction. The 4 arms together make up violence. Now it's the god who has no answer. So if he goes in order, to start, it will be the Fist of Chaos. Sven uses only his giant finger and touches Dale's forehead. Chaos always starts with something small and insignificant. The loss of power, the collapse of order, then chaos explodes. Humanity loses itself from that point on. In the end, violence reigns. Violence ruled without order. This power ravages humanity. Then comes the second fist, oppression. Dale is then crushed by the punch. This is the power that crushes humanity, preventing them from seeing anything. It takes away their hearing, denying their speech. Dale is completely oppressed, left with no option to counterattack, until a giant hand comes for him and crushes him completely. Caddy prepares to fight as well. She creates her usual blade, then begins her attack. Her brother defends himself only with his arms. Cillian asks if his sister has returned to what she was. She doesn't understand what happened, but their 2 memories have connected. This is confusing even for him. Caddy thanks her brother, saying this was only possible because of him. Then she summons the power of Enak to amplify her strength. Nadira has no idea why, out of nowhere, they started fighting. Maybe this is part of training, she thinks. If that's the case, she's going to join. But her feet are trapped. Nadira falls flat on her chin on the ground. Then she looks around to see who did it. Simon asks her not to forget about him since he can also use powers. Nadira gets mad at him for wanting to fight her without even advancing his class first. But maybe he was misunderstood. Cillian says that since his sister has the memories of the follower, she knows that the father never loses. Caddy says that Dale can win. But it's impossible to escape from the fist of oppression. The fight will end right there. But Caddy believes in her partner. She knows he will find a way. All of Dale's senses are gone, except for touch. Something then hits him in the face. Without a voice, he can't even summon his demons. He is also not regenerating. Again, another blow strikes him. Stud knows very well how to neutralize his powers. Another strong attack. Dale has to find a way to escape. The god oppresses him with several attacks at once. Maybe there's no way out this time. His master asks what he thinks that Cain is. He asks again, what is that he is holding? Dale remembers that lesson. More important than the name is its meaning. Now he understands he doesn't summon the power by saying its name. That is just an act that points to something. What really matters is the meaning itself. Dale now understands that the method doesn't matter. Sven realizes something is happening. Caddy says that the father will never be able to win, because her partner is going to summon a demon that cannot be defeated by violence. The summoning is successfully completed. As the smoke clears, the silhouette can be seen. Sven does not comprehend the appearance of what he is seeing. From the year 1201, the Red War began, and for more than 2 million years, he waited for the end to hunt the gods. Coming from the first hell, the demon of war. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.